Good afternoon. I hope all of you have some coffee and cookies. Like I say, I don't want to bring them home. I'm trying to get rid of this insulation I built up over the winter time, so please help yourself. I just want to make a few initial remarks before we call the meeting to order. And first of all, I just want to welcome all of you here tonight. So grateful. This is what we call civic engagement. We have elected officials up here who I'll introduce in just a minute. But the elected officials set strategy and kind of follow, watch over the operation of the city and work with the staff. But we can't do what we need to do to make this town a real community without the civic engagement and involvement of all people like you. And I look around the audience here, and I can see numerous faces that are on some of the boards, commissions, committees that do the work of the city. So it's so much appreciated that you're all here. We have a long agenda tonight, and we're going to get through it as expeditiously as we can. We purposely put the audit report at the beginning of the meeting so that we can get through that and let them get on their way back to Virginia. We'll follow up with public input. And because there's so many of you here tonight, we actually do have on the agenda tonight a policy that we'll review for public input. But for tonight, we would like to keep public input to like 2 minutes, maximum 3 minutes, in case there's a lot of people that do want to speak. I'll be timing you and I'll be gaveling you if you get up to 3 minutes. So thank you very much. I also want to make a point to make you know, realize that we are being recorded. There's a recorder right over here, and Steve, do you have yours set up? Okay, there's another recorder right over here. So just so you know, we are recorded, and we will show up on YouTube, Facebook, you know what, we'll be out there. So I think that's good for all of you to know. And with that, I just want to introduce our council members. Brooke Anderson, councilor. Councilor Kevin Fitton hasn't shown up yet, but I'm sure, have you heard from him?
Yes, he has a grad school event he cannot get out of.
Okay. And Councilor Rachel Beldo, and former mayor and councilor Steve Abrams, and I'm Mayor Olin Kringstad. Over here we have Linda Keith as staff, and Terry Joki Martin over there in the corner. We kind of threw them a curveball by having the meeting at the Civic Center, and I really appreciate Linda the extra hassle that it took to get the meeting down here. And if we do this again, we'll have plenty of warning, and I hope everything's down for you. So with that, I will sit down. We'll call the meeting to order. Once the auditors begin their presentation, the council is going to move over here to the front row so that we can be front and center to watch the presentation and the report that's given as well. Thank you very much. So I forgot the gavel.
Want a spoon from the kitchen?
So it is now 5:32, and we'll call the meeting to order. Linda, would you do a roll call?
Abrahamson.
Here.
Anderson. Here. Bello. Here. Councilor Pittman is absent. Kringstad.
Here. Thank you very much. And so the councilors all have the agenda before them. Are there any changes?
I did add 2 items that are on the agenda on that printed copy.
Okay. Number 9.6 and 9.7 are highlighted in yellow. City accounting software and Standing Bear Marina final payment estimate have been added to the agenda for this evening. Is there a motion to accept the agendas?
So moved.
Any further discussion? Any second? Support?
I'll support.
And any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mine is an aye. I would like to now introduce Devin Siegler, I started saying Pepper, but it's Siegler, correct? And Greg Knudsen. Knudsen's an easy one to read if you know us. And they're the auditors with Walker, Giroux, Henny, and have been doing the audits for the City of Howard for how many years?
Walker Drew has been doing it for a long time. I've been 8. Greg's got 30 plus years experience, and then probably 6 or something.
I would say close to 10.
Or close to 10.
Suffice to say that we have some very experienced auditors giving us a presentation tonight. And with that, the council will move over to the front seats over here. We'll ask our questions from there. After the audit is over, I'd like the audience, the chamber here, to hold their questions until we're done. And we'll give you an opportunity to ask questions as well. Thank you very much.
So this is our audit report for the City of Howard. I'm going to first go through with kind of our responsibilities. That's what we do in an audit. This is a financial statement audit, so we're primarily in charge of making sure that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. This is our audit report. And if I scroll down here, sorry it's hard to see, I made it as big as I could. But under auditor's responsibility, here's a paragraph that says, our responsibility is to express opinions on these financial statements based on our audit. We conducted our audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America and the standards applicable to the financial audits contained in governmental auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States. Those standards require that we plan and perform an audit to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free from material misstatement. So, we are auditing these financial reports. That is what we are hired to do. Then on the next page, Sure. Everybody can hear me? Okay. This is our opinion paragraph. So this is basically where we give our opinion as to whether these financial statements are clear from material misstatement. And it states, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the City of Howard, Minnesota as of December 31st, 2018, and the respective changes in financial position and, where applicable, cash flows thereof for the year ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. This paragraph is an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion that we can present on financial statements. That being said, it doesn't state that the health of the financial statements. It states that they are presented in accordance with GAAP. And then I will go to the cash deficits. So I know there's been a lot of talk about funding. And this is our interfund balances and activities note. As you can see, we have a receivable fund over here, which the general fund has booked or... Yep.
When you go to that page, could you tell us?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I haven't written down here. Page 37 in found audit, of course. So this note basically shows all the receivables and payables between the types of funds. As you can see, there's significant balances. The first one is the TIDA Special Revenue Fund, which that is showing a deficit cash balance between the TIDA and the general fund. So basically the general fund has loaned, for cash flow purposes, $238,000 to the TIDA Special Revenue Fund. The next biggest balance is the historic harbor renovations capital projects, which is over $500,000. Then further down, there's the airport capital projects and the North 2nd Street capital projects. These funds have run deficit cash fund balances for numerous years. Then along the same balance, or the same topic, this is our spreadsheet that we use to basically look at the fund balances in a snapshot. So the highlighted green line is the fund balances in the city's financials that make up the general fund. So the way the city has reported for the past, well, since I've been auditing here, is that the general fund, Fund 102, which is a ski trail fund, 107, the forest, 109, hoodoo, 201, the ambulance, and then 110 and 111, which are the airport funds. All those are combined to make up the general fund that we report in these financial statements. So one of our management points, which we have made for the past 5 years or so, is to move this ambulance fund into special revenue fund. So in our financial statements, it's reported separately. So it's not aggregated with the general fund. And we want to do that because further down here, here's everything highlighted in orange is in a deficit fund balance, so basically overspent. So most of these are capital projects funds and also this TIDA special revenue fund. So the total fund balance as we reported in the general fund is $1.1 million. Of that $1.1 million, $883,000 is the ambulance. However, that's on our report is part of the general fund. And the general fund has funded all of these deficit cash capital projects funds. So that's kind of where the whole cash flow problem arises. And I think to be transparent, reporting the ambulance fund in a separate special revenue fund or enterprise fund would be a good way to increase transparency of the financial statements as it's presented on our report. Do you have anything to add? Good.
A lot of places are showing the special revenue fund instead of enterprise fund. Because the danger of doing with the enterprise fund is you get net pension liabilities and deferred inflows and outflows. In addition, I mean, it's good to have the depreciation on those ambulances, but to show those with those other ones, it sort of calls the issue of the real operations. Therefore, a lot of cities are showing the ambulance fund as a separate special revenue fund.
So we're back to our interfund balances and activities, note 8. So basically these are cash deficit balances. Next we'll go to page 68.
Sure. The total of the deficit cash balance is 1.149 million.
Yes.
Okay. You said there was a number of years that some of these cash balances, the negative cash balances built up. Can you give an estimate on how far back they go, for example?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
The North 2nd Water and Sewer Project occurred between 2009 and 2011. The Main Street Water and Sewer Project, I guess we did that was 2012 and 13. The Charter School, which is the TIDA, is 2012. The Airport Operating Fund was 1997 through 2013. The Airport Capital Improvement Fund was 97 through 2013. The Howard Wagner Ski Trail, I'm not sure when exactly that started, but I know the last deficit was 2013. And the Harbor There is some debt from 2013 to 18, but from 2007 to 2013, the town of Harbor had a debt of $291,166. So most of these debts were prior to the last council and the staff. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. I just wanted a historic perspective on the balances.
Most of them have been decreasing since 2013. The only one that has increased is the harbor project.
And historically, to fund these balances, they've been just transfers from the general fund. And that's how they end up getting eliminated, and that's why they stick around for so long. Because I mean, you're not really transferring a whole lot of money from the general fund every year. It's just $20,000 here, $20,000 next year. And when you have a $150,000 deficit, it takes a while. So then we'll go to page 68. These are our findings. The first one, well, both of them we've had every year just because of the nature of the small cities. Segregation of duties, and the criteria states the concentration of duties and responsibilities in a limited number of individuals is not desirable from an internal accounting control point of view. The gist of this finding is basically the city has limited staff, so you can't have proper internal accounting control unless you hire more staff, which for small cities around here, it doesn't make sense financially. However, I feel like maybe since it's in the report, I don't mean Greg talked about this, since this finding's in the report every year, a lot of times it gets overlooked. Like saying, oh, we'll never get rid of it, so who cares? So that's one thing that I would say to the council is maybe that's something that you'll want to look into, is how to segregate duties, and whether it's re-looking or checking off on invoices or requesting bank statements every month or something along those lines. But I guess I wanted to make sure the importance of segregation of duties, because that's the internal controls to make sure that everything's run fine.
Now, I'd just like to add on that, I know certain cities will pick an area or two every year to follow up on, whether it's open bank statements, sticking their nose into things, making sure they review certain things going on, because essentially it's the council and the mayor that are responsible for these. So if sometimes even part of this finding or part of what they're going to do, I've seen it just add a thing or two, and everything that you do helps mitigate this, because it is your responsibility to segregate as much as possible. If you don't have the staff size, have the council and mayor or some other designated person, but essentially to go in and change something so that way at least you're being upfront with it instead of proactive instead of reactive. Thank you.
That was actually the answer to the question I was going to ask, but are there specific solutions that other small cities the size of Powers come up with that have really worked well to segregate the duties? Obviously, what you just said is a good answer, utilizing the city council, mayor, and perhaps a councilor, but are there other...
To properly segregate, yeah, because I think the more amount of people that you can have, say for a cash disbursement, the more amount of people that could do the bank deposit, do the bank rec, pick up the mail, sign off on checks. I mean, each one of those specific duties would segregate duties even further. So, you know, it would get caught along the process somewhere. So I think just getting the council involved is the main thing, or having multiple people do different duties in the process is the best way to handle it, I think.
Duly noted.
And one simple way is to have one of the council members opening the checks up front, have it unopened. That way, if somebody's doing something or writing a check they shouldn't, it would get caught before it could be altered or changed or somehow destroyed. So that's one way. And the other way is when you're writing checks, you know, I know there's there 3 signatures or 2 of them on there?
All 5.
Okay. And to make sure that you're actually reviewing the disbursement, not just rubber stamping. And if something looks a little goofy, like you have a check to some place that just doesn't make sense, to actually go through and follow through and make sure that you're reviewing it. That way the person processing knows you just can't, it's not going to be rubber stamped. It's actually a legitimate disbursement. That catches it up front. That's one of the, those 2 areas are the 2 biggest I can think of from the disbursement.
All right, then, also on page 68 is our second finding, lack of control over the financial reporting process. This finding basically just has to do with that the city's hired our firm to put together the financial statements, and they rely on us to actually issue the reports and all the notes and the financial report itself. Next, we will go to page 70. And this is the management letter. So this letter basically is our communication to the city council, stating just things that we think need to be in writing that are more important to have in writing to the council. And there are things that could be approved on or improved on or that we found during the audit. So the first one, as I touched on earlier, as reported in prior years, there are several capital projects funds that continue to have deficit fund balances. The city must review these deficit fund balances and determine ways to eliminate them. I went back and I think we've had this finding since 2010, and that's the earliest that I went back. So for the past 8 years, this finding has been included in our management letter. Number 2, the water and sewer enterprise funds reported operating losses of $15,709 and $21,500 respectively. Revenues were insufficient to cover operating expenses. Management should consider the need to increase rates in order to make the enterprise fund self-sufficient. I think this finding has been fairly typical also. Number 3,
Could I ask you, if the amounts are relatively the same? Do they fluctuate or are they sort of flat?
I probably would have to find out. I know they weren't like $100,000 losses. They were, roughly around this. I know when we looked at it, I think those amounts are really close to the depreciation being taken in those accounts.
Pretty much we balanced the year, try to do those accounts that goes up to the depreciation.
Yeah.
And to cover that, we would have to raise our rates $41.50 per quarter per household.
If you could repeat that, if you might.
We try to balance our water and sewer funds down to a 0, and so we don't have excess or deficit. So usually it's the depreciation that pushes us over, which it is this year as well. And in order to cover that depreciation this year, we would have to raise water rates per household per quarter by $41.50. So I get what they're saying, but at the practical level, it's also something to be covered.
So then, number 3, the city reports ambulance activity as part of the general fund. The general fund has financed numerous capital projects by interfund lending. Since the ambulance department is segregated with the general fund and on the financial statements, it has indirectly financed some of the capital projects fund's deficits. We suggest the city report ambulance activity in a special revenue or enterprise fund in order to increase transparency of the ambulance department. That's what I touched on earlier also. Number 4.
Could I ask a question on that one too? And I hope they can move it here behind me. So by moving the ambulance fund to its own special revenue or enterprise fund, does that show both what the fund is currently booked at and what's actually in the account? In other words, the actual? Or how would that be reported?
It would be reported similar to the other special revenue funds. I could pull one up as an example. So like the TIDA special revenue fund, it would be just shown as its own separate fund, and you'd see all the revenues and expenditures in detail. Instead, it's lumped over here in the general fund. So basically, right after its TIDA special revenue fund, we just have an ambulance special revenue fund. And we provide detail of all the different revenues, all the different expenses, and it just be shown separately. And additionally, if the general fund or if you wanted the ambulance fund to support any of these deficit capital projects or wanted to use some ambulance revenue for these capital projects funds, you'd have to transfer it. You'd have to physically transfer it. So you'd see in the separate ambulance column the transfer out of the ambulance fund instead of it being lumped in the general fund as a transfer or a due from the general fund. So you don't have a clear showing in the financial statements of what specifically that money was coming from.
So that's transparency.
Right, correct. So then number 4, one disbursement voucher for a card member services payment was not authorized by the council. However, was approved for payment in the minutes. We suggest disbursement vouchers have written authorization by the council.
Just to put this in perspective, the staff processed 1,187 vouchers last year. So missing one is an error rate of 0.008%.
Number 5, credits for a retiree's health insurance reimbursement account were different than the amount approved in the minutes. It appears the difference was miscalculation. We suggest the city review this calculation and determine the correct amount that should be credited to the retiree's account. And Linda had figured out it was just an incorrect calculation of either between 5 months and 6 months. So that's just something that you guys can look at and then determine what that balance actually should be.
Has that been corrected or it needs to be
Will
corrected?
be on the next agenda. We'll have that on.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Number 6, the city paid a contractor $2,470 more than what was billed on an invoice, and on a subsequent invoice there was no credit for the additional amount paid, nor was there a reimbursement for overpayment. We suggest the city review invoices and request reimbursement or credit for the overpayment. Okay. Number 7, storefront loan recipients have not been paying their loans timely. Interest on these delinquent loans should be accruing. However, the city has not calculated or tracked the additional interest. We suggest the city review these loan agreements and determine a course of action for delinquent loans. One thing that could be done similar to this is look at those every 3 months. The council could and make sure that the payments are up to date and none of them are delinquent. Number 8, the invoice was submitted for reimbursement for a TIDA loan provided limited detail, which makes it questionable as a reimbursable expense for the grant related to the Tower Harbor project. The invoice was submitted to the IRRB and reimbursed. However, there doesn't appear to be appropriate detailed documentation supporting the payment. We suggest the city review invoices submitted for the related loan and IRRB grant to verify that all invoices were allowable costs.
Devin, could I ask, on that one, the invoice in question was forwarded to you
Right.
with an explanation?
Well, that was the detail that we already had. So, you know, the invoice itself didn't provide detailed enough information for us to opine that, without question, that the services that were provided. So additional information probably would be required for the invoice for for me to be able to totally understand what the invoice is being reimbursed for, or being asked to pay for.
Okay. I think the answer that was forwarded was that it was the final payment from the architect for architectural engineering.
Sure.
So it was for work completed. But if you need, or if Linda would like additional documentation on that, we can request that of the Tower Harbor Shores.
Sure. Well, and I mean, this is just to bring up to the council to say, hey, it's something to look at, make sure it's reimbursable, and if it is, then it's all money.
Yeah, good point. Point well taken.
At this point, the invoice does not represent anything that the city would be able to authorize expenditure for. I did contact the IRRB again, and they were not in favor of this payment. They think that this is not an approved expense on their side, and their suggestion was to contact the state auditor and ask their opinion on how to resolve this matter, because simply swapping one invoice for another invoice does not look transparent. So they would ask that the state auditor come up with a procedure for us to resolve this. And since these monies were paid to a now elected official, this makes it very problematic.
Yeah, so I guess that would be something for the council to look into.
And I think we would support the state auditor's opinion on what to do with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we looked at the invoice and it raises question marks. But I mean, if proper detailed documentation was provided, then I think it would be a legitimate, allowable expense.
Well, one other question. Did you sum up all of the invoices that were submitted?
Yes.
There was, well, for the TIDA loan you're talking about? Yes.
It was the IRRB grant that became a TIDA loan.
Correct.
Do you recall what the total amount submitted was?
$130,690.
Okay.
This
So it
invoice,
was several thousand, it was like $6,000 more than the 1.5.
it was $4,690 more than the 126.
Okay. And the invoice in question was for how much?
$29,080.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, and then number 9. The city made a motion in 2017 to allow Tower Vision 2025 LLC to make interest-only payments on their loan from June 30th, 2018. From June 30th, 2018 to December 31st, 2018, no principal payments were made and no council action was in the minutes to extend the interest-only term of the loan. In December of 2018, the council approved in the minutes to transfer the loan from Tower Vision 2025 LLC to Tower Harbor Shores LLC, but did not sign any promissory note or other appropriate legal documentation until March of 2019. We suggest the city contact their attorney to resolve any conflicts related to this matter. So there is a new contract that was signed, but it was in March, so we suggest that it should have been late December or early January. Number 10, the current mayor was the development manager in charge of the Tower Harbor Shores project. Prior to being sworn in, this mayor stepped down as the development team manager. We suggest the mayor, council, and city attorney review related agreements pertaining to the mayor and the Tower Harbor Shores project, conclude whether or not a conflict exists, and determine the course of action as to whether or not the mayor should abstain from voting on related projects.
Okay. I'd like to comment. And the reason that I want to comment on this is that it's come up a number of times, and I think that a clarification both to the public and the auditors and the city council is in order. We had a discussion about this with the auditors, and the suggested addition, if you look at that second sentence where it says that the development or former mayor, well, probably the same Steve. Yeah, it says prior to being sworn in as mayor, he stepped down as a development manager. And added to that sentence should be, and the best of his family financial interests such that there are no current or future financial benefits to Pringsted or any family members upon completion or dissolution of the Tower Harbor Shores project. Any perceived conflict would in any case apply only to the 3-building, 20-unit townhome known as Tower Harbor Shores LLC. And not to any other current or future project developments in the Tower Harbor area, north, south, east, or west. And I believe one of the current managers of Tower Harbor Shores is present, so if he wants to comment, if anyone has questions, they can read my question out. Tony?
You said here in October of last year, 5-6 months ago, and you told us that this loan would be brought current by 12/31/2018. Has that happened?
We're not talking about the loan now. We're talking about conflict of interest. We're talking about point number 10.
I think the loan's part of a conflict of interest, but I'll remain waiting patiently for an answer on where our $126,000 is in the status.
So, okay, I wanted to make that.
He asked for questions. Whoever commented that I was speaking out of place.
We're going to open up for
I've been to
questions.
school. I remember how it works.
But I can speak to that, because I mean, that was our management point that we brought up at number 9, that we discussed. And since our audit is through December 31st, 2018, it wasn't made, the interest-only term of the loan. The council had decided in 2018 to allow interest-only payments on that loan until June 30th of 2018. Then from June to December, there were no principal payments made. And I believe that the council decide in 2019 to extend the interest-only.
The council in 2018 was the last one to take action on this, and they pretty much said, we don't want to deal with this, we're sick and tired of hearing about it, it's the bane of our existence, it's been a problem ever since it was brought to us, nothing has been followed, everything has been a problem, we were bullied into doing processes that we wouldn't normally do, and they just said, here you go on, with nothing being resolved or clarified.
Well, so that's, I mean, number 9 is basically our statement towards that, is that the interest, or something needs to be discussed at the council meeting board, yeah.
So if we're part of that, do we do that in public input, or do we do it now?
We'll have a chance to comment after the audit presentation is over.
Number 11, a roster of the numerous boards, councils, and commissions provided to the council contained errors. We suggest the city review this roster annually and properly document in the minutes any changes to boards, councils, or commissions. Number 12, payroll reports had the following variances. Line 2 of the 941 forms for the first 3 quarters were corrected by adjusting the 4th quarter 941. W-2 forms did not match quarterly reports, and the W-2 forms for 4 ambulance personnel that take care in lieu of wages were reported with a total variance of $694. We suggest the city correct all misstatements and reconcile, review, and approve payroll reports throughout the year to prevent similar misstatements.
And just for the record, we have 11 staff that have para, and the sampling was done on Keith, Yorgo, Carlson, Batten, Kutula, Carlson, and Evans, and those 7 were correct, and there were 4 that were intermixed. And this is entirely software.
And then number 13, cash transfer was made from the ambulance savings account to the ambulance checking account in anticipation for the purchase of an ambulance. However, the ambulance was not purchased in 2018, and there was no indication of council approval to transfer the funds. We suggest the city review this transfer and follow/review their procedures relating to transfers and financial reporting. Number 14, audit adjustments and requested reports were not presented to the auditors timely. We suggest the city provide auditors with documents timely. Number 15, there appears to be a lack of financial reporting oversight. We suggest the council review and update procedures related to financial reporting in order to maintain proper controls. Such controls should include, but are not limited to, reviewing disbursements, receipts, bank statements, and financial reports on an ongoing basis.
And since we were here, we did decide to, review the disbursements that we made. And then we also decided to look at revenue and expenditures and spend some of the first week of every month.
Okay. And 16, the city has numerous capital projects, grants, and other capital expenditures that affect the overall cash flow of the city. At the end of 2018, cash that was not earmarked for certain capital expenditures was low. We suggest the city review their cash balances at every meeting and have a plan to manage their cash so the city does not have cash flow problems. And that concluded what we wanted to touch on and go through.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the city clerk's answer on number 15, the financial reporting. We did talk about that at the last council meeting. It's something that regular financial reporting with a dashboard kind of presentation of the current state of the city financially has not been done. And Linda and I, the clerk treasurer and I, and I think the council, we discussed it at the last meeting, did agree that we should have a financial committee to help us develop the right kind of a dashboard presentation of the financial situation and the current assets of the city. So, and I believe Linda has the first of the treasurer's reports to present to us tonight, although I haven't seen them yet. Okay, are there questions from the audience? Yes. And if you have a loud voice, that's great, but if you want the mic, I can bring it.
Lee Peterson, Greenwood Township. I'm wondering, do you know how much money is in the ambulance fund tonight?
Tonight we don't. Our audit was through December 31st, 2018. So that's where our audit procedures stop as far as cash. So we know the cash balance as of December 31st, 2018.
And that was,
Well, through the end of last month, I mean not tonight, but through third quarter, we do not have that yet. But that's
As of 12/31, it was 883,278.
That's the fund balance. That's not cash balance. But
good question. This is the sort of what I call it a dashboard. It's a quick glimpse at what our finances are in the city, what we have to work with, cash balances, do we have deficits or do we have surpluses, and we want to make that as presentable and clear to everybody as we can. So it's one of the things that we will be addressing. So good question. Thank you. Any other, Michael?
I guess I was wondering,
You should introduce yourself over here.
Michael Wood, I'm one of the investors in the Tower Harbor Shores project. So I live down near Giants Ridge, but I find myself going up to Tower regularly. So all this stuff. So I was wondering too about the deficits, what the impact of that is. So if you don't know the cash balance, for instance, of the ambulance fund, what do those deficits mean in terms of the operation of the city, and do you have the money to do the stuff that needs to be done? Does that make sense?
So there's a difference between a fund balance deficit and a cash deficit. The fund balance deficits can include such things as receivables, money that hasn't come in yet, or payables, money that hasn't been spent yet. And so the fund balance it gives an overall health of where that fund is at, but it doesn't necessarily give you the deficit in cash. So I was going to give them my Wi-Fi, and then I would be able to pull up, but actually I might be able to figure out the cash fund balance for you in a second.
So I guess the basic question is, those deficits look fairly large, but is that real, or is that just an accounting kind of shuffle between funds? Is there a...
The deficits are large, and it's basically your general fund has financed all these projects. And so I showed that one slide. I'll pull back up this due from note that I showed earlier. That'll lighten the mood up.
A lot better than what used to be on there.
So this was the note showing the cash fund deficits. So, well, let's take the historic harbor renovation capital projects. That's $500,000 in deficit. That fund basically borrowed $500,000 from the general fund, which the general fund is over half funded by the ambulance department. So they're borrowing that much money, that much cash from the ambulance department.
So is that appropriate, or is that a misuse of funds, or is it a...
It was, so the state allows you to report the ambulance fund in a general fund, like as part of your general fund. And that's why our management point said, well, to make sure that you're being transparent, to report that in a special revenue fund and show it by itself. So then if you ever did want to use cash from your ambulance fund, you'd have to transfer it. And you'd see a transfer going out of your ambulance revenue to the historic renovations capital projects fund. Did you want to speak on that at all?
Yeah. As far as the appropriateness, all those receivables and payables and due to and from should be approved by the city council, and they're set up as a temporary transfer versus a permanent transfer or transfers in and out. That's where a fund will make a transfer to eliminate deficit, but it's not meant to be paid back. These receivables, payables, the intent on those for cash flow purpose, temporary cash flow purposes, once either a grant comes in or future levies or revenues or what have you, that those will be eliminated. But at a point in time, December 31st of 18, these due to and from still show and are accounted for.
So are those transfers made like without formal council approval, or are they, since they're temporary?
I believe they were made with council approval.
But that was before your time.
Yeah, and as a rule of thumb, you don't have deficit cashes overall. If a certain fund has deficit cash, you set up a due to and from fund to eliminate, basically to highlight that you're going to have to pay back Fund X or Fund Y. In this case, all of the, other than the sewer to the water, all of the 1.1 million that was shown on that is to the general fund, of which the, for cash flow purposes, a good percentage is actually the ambulance.
So we have an ambulance on order, and it will need to be paid for sometime during first half 2019, I'm assuming. There may be some input, or the ambulance director could probably answer the question, but what is the date following delivery of an ambulance that it must be paid for?
So the chassis bill, they're sending us, which was I don't have.
Use that voice of yours.
So the bill for the chassis, which is already now at the four-wheel drive, is either should have shown up today or will be here this week for that. The balance of what is owed on the ambulance, the bulk of it, is not paid till it is picked up. And at this time, because everybody was so far behind, starting with GMC, we're
Can
not
everybody
looking-
hear? Oh,
We're not looking at final
But-
payment
come
for
up
the
here.
ambulance until probably August.
Steve, can you take the mic?
So the bill is going to be split into three parts. The chassis, which is $32,000 and change. The four-wheel drive, which is $13,000 and change plus shipping, which I believe was $2,500 for the shipping. That will be the second bill. Right now, that four-wheel drive is not going to be done until sometime in June. So we wouldn't even see that bill till probably the end of June for that. And then it takes them 2 months to build the ambulance, so we're looking at the end of August for that ambulance to be built. So the total bill is going to be roughly $250, so take out about $50 for the chassis and the four-wheel drive. You're looking at about $200 then is the balance. $148,900. Was that what it said in there? $148,900 is ambulance subsidy money. That money is the money that the city of Tower and the townships put in every year. So that 100 and almost 50 is part of that. And then the ambulance fund will pay the balance of that.
Is that, the subsidy, is that in the ambulance fund?
It's in the ambulance fund, but it's a separate, when you look at the thing, it is a separate line item because they take that money. Those are payments that the city makes to the ambulance and that all the townships make to the ambulance. And every year they take that amount, all those checks, and they add it to that ambulance subsidy. It's a separate line item that they credit that way. So that's how they keep track of that money every year.
Sorry, I'm just trying to nail it down. So is the fund balance for the ambulance of $800 and some odd $80,000 or so, is that before all those loans? When those loans are paid back from the other funds, does that increase the ambulance fund or is it not relevant?
It'll increase the cash, it won't increase the,
The actual fund. So is the fund balance and the cash balance very different?
yes,
So the fund balance, the cash balance must be way lower than the fund balance.
correct.
So we're not sure how big the cash balance is.
Well, I could get that for you, it's not no
But,
problem.
you know, could be less than the cost of the ambulance.
Well, the cash balance could.
Linda, do you have that number? I guess the question that's being asked here is will the funding be there for that final payment when it comes due when the ambulance is delivered? Is that kind of where we're going?
That would be one relevant question, I think.
Who wants to take it?
Well, the funding is, I would say the funding is there, the money is in the fund. The city can, I guess I've said this a couple times already, the city cannot keep spending money it doesn't have and borrowing from the ambulance and not putting it back. The money's there. The city needs to make sure it's there. And not ordering the ambulance isn't how you're gonna do it. You're not gonna pay that money back by not ordering the ambulance. It's not gonna, well, it's ordered already, and it doesn't matter. But that money needs to be put back, and that's what they keep saying every year. You can't keep creating more debt. You have to start paying it down and not borrowing it constantly from the ambulance.
And I would agree with that. So, there's still a question, I think, that's out there, and anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, but the ambulance fund needs to be replenished to ultimately pay for the complete ambulance. And how will that be done? In other words, the funding that has to pay back the ambulance fund is coming from the negative fund balances, am I getting that correct?
So what I put up on the screen here is the general fund. And the ambulance activity is included in your general fund. So you can see there's $238,000 worth of cash in there. So what, and further down, your fund balance in your general fund is 1.1 million. So how do we get to there? It's basically this receivable due from other funds. So if all those funds were to pay the general fund back, their cash balance would shoot way up and they get rid of this due from other funds balance. So in essence, that fund balance itself is going to borrow so much money from other funds that the cash, it's basically the definition of a cash flow problem.
So some of that's gonna have to happen through your ambulance, right, Steve?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know like the tax, when does the city get its first tax? In July. So that, whatever that chunk of money is and whatever other revenue sources that the city has. I mean, it's not the first time that the.
Right, I was just going to bring that up. Yeah, the $186,000 of grant receivable. As soon as that comes in, probably the IWRB is state one goes in. You have to dig into that for sure. Yes.
Were you aware before that a whole bunch of townships pay into that ambulance fund?
Yes.
Okay, so shouldn't, I'm just guessing, I'm not an accountant, but shouldn't that be treated a little differently as far as sprinkling that money around?
Yes.
You know, that should be for the ambulance.
Correct. And it is. And I believe Steve said the $148,000 set aside.
It said 148.9, I think it's right.
So, on page 38, this is the fund balance note that we have. So as you can see, restricted. So this is how we track the ambulance revenue that's paid for by the townships. Money comes in from the townships, we restrict the fund balance, but of course, like I said before, the fund balance isn't a cash balance. So not only do we restrict the fund balance, so it's ambulance contributions of $125,990. That's what the townships contributed as of December 31st, 2018. But then we also restrict the cash. So the city sets aside a savings account, and that money is deposited into the savings account. Which, that being said, also we have a management plan on that.
You know, I'm starting to think I understand a little bit of that part, but now the tower part of the ambulance fund is gone, and they're asking us to increase our contribution. I think that's the cover of the tower part.
No, that's not it. So you don't have this sheet in front of you, but they provided the CDs and savings. The ambulance subsidy fund, 148,490 is one of these savings accounts. So that money is dedicated for the purpose of, it has to be dedicated. That it's illegal to spend it on anything else.
So did you hear the answer that that 148,000 and change, Steve?
Yeah, 148.
Is in a savings account. It's there, ready to pay for some portion of that ambulance that's coming.
And we're being asked to increase our contribution because apparently the tower part of the fund is spent somewhere else.
No, Towers money is included in that subsidy.
It's in the fund where the cash is there. That's what I
Okay, I think he's asking, Steve, how much of the tower subsidy is in that one?
All of it.
Okay, which is,
Well, the total balance is 148.
okay,
That's the, so they take that money every year, and there's a line item in the expenditures. No, in the revenue, excuse me. It says tower, what does it say, tower?
Township subsidy. The tower tax portion.
Yeah, tower tax apportionment, and that is towers,
it'd be great, Steve, if you'd stand up and use that booming voice of yours.
no, okay, so that's, all the tower subsidy money and all of the township subsidy money is in a savings account where it's supposed to be. The rest of the accounting stuff is city of tower problem, and the increase in the subsidy has absolutely nothing to do with that. The city has borrowed itself money and does have to put it back. But the rigs have gone to a cost of, right now, $230,000. That subsidy was left way behind. The whole point of the subsidy is that all the townships and the city were putting that money aside to pay for those rigs, and it no longer does that. That's why it has to go up.
I don't accept that.
Well, I'm sorry, but that's the way it is, whether you accept it or not is irrelevant.
The contribution to the ambulance fund on an annual basis through 2018, do you have that spreadsheet?
2018.
Yeah, I think it was like 2015 through 2018. Roughly the revenue from operating the ambulance service contributed a certain number of dollars, in the hundreds of thousands, or 100,000 plus.
Does the township contribute?
No. The ambulance operations that contributed to the ambulance fund. That 883,000, is that what it was?
Yes.
So the ambulance operation has built up a sizable fund, even though that funding has been used for other purposes, which is a problem that we've inherited that we need to solve. And I pledge that this council is going to solve that this year. Steve, I think your question back here, can you come up and use the mic? Sorry.
I'm Dean Spiker, and I actually live in Howard. I'm on the ambulance service. The big thing that you're not getting is that everything costs a lot of money. You know, you're looking at that $800,000 and some $1,000. That goes to pay for our pay and costs. That goes to pay for the goals that we buy. That goes to pay for every single thing that we use to protect everyone. The money that goes into the subsidy, I was on part of the service when we increased it to $5 a head years ago. It had been the same amount of money per person for 20 years. Nothing ever built up. They had to purchase 2 ambulances. When they did that, they went into debt with that portion of it. So they've been trying to get themselves out of debt by paying money back in. You know, it's like we keep wanting to throw that $800,000 in there. That $800,000 has nothing to do with the rig. It really doesn't. It has to do with paying for day-to-day stuff. There's also, what is it, Steve,
140 is part of the building fund.
So when that building out there burnt down, $140,000 was brought in from that. That's sitting there waiting for us to get another building. Right now, we don't have a second building. We've got an ambulance sitting outside most of the time. It comes down to, you know, we keep throwing this out there, well, you have this, you have this. Just like every other fund. When I do my bills, I have money that goes to here, money that goes to there. And if I have to choose between paying $25 a head and having a service or not paying it, guess what I'm going to pay? You know, and that has nothing to do with me making a mint being on the service. I'm the one that's up at 2 o'clock in the morning going out to help people. It's what I do, it's what I choose to do. But sitting here listening to you complain about it doesn't make it any better. Comes down to, you could probably think nothing about going and spending $25 for a piece of steak. But yet you're complaining about putting that.
You're getting way off the track.
It's the same thing.
So I will say this as far as the ambulance. This is not the first time that this has happened. Because that subsidy was so far behind, the last two ambulances, the ambulance fund had to cover with their money because there was not enough money. It's about $100,000 when the 2011 was bought, and it was $150,000 almost when the 2013. That the ambulance fund covered money that was earned and saved by the volunteers. Now, we have paid on-call staff now, but up until April of last year, we did not. All of that money has been earned and saved by volunteers. So keep that in mind. And that money is ultimately all goes back into the ambulance, into the very expensive equipment that it costs to do that job. And we're pocketing that money. That's why it's $800,000. We try and build that fund up as much as we can because we know we're going to need to cover stuff down the road.
Well, we were led to believe that the big deal about the transfers and this and that, we were gonna have money thrown around here. That it was gonna be self-paying basically, or generate a lot of income, and maybe it is for some, but that $800 and some thousand, that's still for the ambulance, one way or the other.
Correct. I'm gonna move on
And
to
those
the next.
ambulances generate that money. So you're asking us to pay in so you can borrow from that fund. So shift it around in town. We're not buying it.
Linda maybe just indicated she's going to answer this question. My name's Steve Wilson, and what I still don't understand is when the ambulance is paid for, $230,000, whatever it is, what is that going to do to the overall Tower City budget in terms of cash on hand? Is it going to put us in a real bind in terms of being able to operate? And that's for the auditors or Linda. But auditors first.
So right now we're 3 months past our basically term that we were supposed to be auditing. December 31st, 2018 is basically what we can speak for, because we don't audit January, we don't audit February in 2019. So as part of that, I can't speak for that.
Well, from where you're sitting in December, what did it look like?
I would say the fund has a cash balance of $179,000, and the shortfall that the subsidy account will have on the rig is about $79,000. So that should be $100,000 and some change in cash and then it's fund above and beyond after the rig is paid for.
Thank you.
I think that answers the question.
And you're talking about the cash balance
Cash.
in specifically the ambulance fund 201.
Correct.
Okay.
I anticipate after the rig is paid for, with the current amounts that we have, we would have $100,000.
You said that.
I would expect that after the rig is paid for, August, September, somewhere in there, that after the full subsidy account would be depleted by that expenditure, and there would still be $100,000 left in the ambulance in cash. After the rig is fully paid for.
Okay. Yes, Marshall, can you come up?
Well, I can speak to that. Off that $100,000 that's remaining, does that separate out the $140,000 insurance settlement? Because that should also be in that account.
Yes.
So that's separated, so there's an additional $140,000 on top of the $100,000?
Yes.
That 100,000
Yes, but the 140 is restricted for a building. The 140 is restricted for a building, so that cannot be touched with purchasing an ambulance.
140 out of 138?
No, that's a different one for you.
Okay, Marshall?
You had touched on this, I think, just a few minutes ago. You mentioned that with the paid on call, now and the increase in the both revenues and expenditures. But can you tell us, Devin or Greg, how things finished up in terms of total expenditures for the ambulance this year versus the total revenues? And I understand there's like fees for service, there's some subsidies that come in from the townships, I think also the county. Could you give us a kind of a breakdown of how that shook out?
It's not very detailed, but I can tell you overall, yeah. So, sorry, it's kind of small. So, here's your general fund. Here's the ambulance fund. Here are the total revenues, here are total expenditures. It should be noted in the total expenditures, I believe the COT was in there as a payable. Paid on call was this year, and Zoll, that's a COT, right? Oh, sorry.
Striker's already, both of those are paid in dispersed.
Oh, okay, so you did buy both of them, so both of them are in.
I think he set up a payable for the spare chair and Lucas, the other assistants.
Yeah, I could get you more detail, but unfortunately that's what I have right now.
Can you read those figures?
So beginning fund balance was 887,000. Revenues were 453,000, and expenditures were 449,000.
So Devin, just so we're clear, because this is the question that's really being asked. We made a lot of money this year. I just spent it all on equipment, correct?
Equipment,
Although we had those huge maintenance bills as well, but.
right, yeah,
Right.
I think maintenance did go up, paid on call, I think that was.
Sure, but beyond the paid on call, I spent all the profits, is basically, not all of them, but I
Yeah.
spent them all.
And I think that's where the city has gotten in trouble in the past, because you weren't spending all your ambulance revenue. You were pocketing some of that, and that's why your general fund was growing, and you're using that excess funds to pay for all these, the harbor project, for instance, or the other capital projects funds.
Right.
You borrow from Peter to pay Paul.
Correct, yeah.
Peter doesn't have to get paid back.
Well, I guess it would be noted, that's why we have this management letter and we put stuff in documentation, but number 13. So this transfer was a transfer from the savings to the checking of the ambulance. So as of 12/31, that savings that had the subsidies with townships and there wasn't in the savings. I wanted to make sure that was clear because you guys are talking a lot about the ambulance.
Is that the 148 that you
Correct,
mentioned?
yeah.
That's the subsidy, the 148.9. Was it
That was an anticipation to pay for the ambulance, but that money, that physical money was moved from the savings to the checking.
It's now savings.
Yeah, now it was,
Oh,
right.
yeah, that, I don't control that stuff, so.
No, we anticipated with years past, that we always have to have a large down payment right upon ordering. This is a new company, new bid style, new build style, so it's a little different than what we thought.
So, we got one more question. Oh, you want to do that first?
Well, I think what we heard earlier is it's recommended to pull the ambulance data and put it over in a separate column, separate from the general fund. What does the city council need to do as an action item to make that happen effective January 1st of this year? Specifically.
Make a motion and approve it. It's really easy. It'd be really easy for us because it's, I mean, on Banyan, on the city's books, it's already a separate fund. Yeah, I mean, I could pull up the trial balance right now and give you revenues and everything. Revenues and expenditures and everything in that fund. So it'll just be presented.
Does the city council need specifically to approve that new segregation of costs
Yes.
and out of the general fund. And when do we see that on an upcoming agenda?
The next agenda, that's the place we'll choose. On the next agenda, if that's what the council wishes, there's no argument here. I don't either one of us have. It really doesn't make a difference for our day-to-day processing.
Well, and I pulled up all the audit reports from 2010, and I think GASB 54 was the GASB in 2013 or 14, and we had this management point on here before, that this ambulance fund should be reported separately, because, I mean, it's a huge revenue generator for the city, and to be just lumping it into the general fund, it feels like it's not being transparent, and it should be reported as a separate fund.
So is that something that we can do several months into the year?
Yes.
Or would we, oh, sorry.
You can do it retroactive.
So I just asked if that's something we can do several months into the year since we're in a new year for accounting purposes.
Because we already segregated.
Okay, good.
Oh, boy.
John, you haven't spoken yet.
I can't.
Joan Brown, resident of Tower. I just want to say that I feel like there should be some respect though. When you have a question, you want to understand what's going on, it should be answered respectfully. And that should go for all the townships. There should be an accounting, an easy, visible accounting for all the townships to see what they're putting their money in for.
And that would be the dashboards that I was talking about. There's other terms for it, but it's a glimpse at any given time where the city stands on various funds and our financial situation. Marshall?
This is the last question I'm going to ask. Over the last 4 years, there's been about, I think, 7 sales of city-owned land. And I know there's a number of additional sales or parcels which are now up for sale, which the previous council approved in their last meeting. And I'm just wondering if you can tell us where do the revenues from that go? Do they just go into the general fund?
Sure. Some of the land on my spreadsheet here.
Did everybody hear the question?
In general fund, this 588, 644, I can't say that all of it's sale of land, but I'd say the majority of it is. I think there was either 2 or 3 parcels in 18 that were sold. But that would be the revenue going into that general fund. I think the forest fund in the past has had some land sales also. So on our financial reports or our audit report, they would all be recorded in the general fund.
And a couple of them are earmarked for hardware. And a couple of the keys sold are earmarked for hardware yet. So once they are actually sold, they go to the hardware.
Okay, Marshall said that was his last question. Are we good? Okay, there is
Is this the public input period?
No, okay. Last question.
Okay, so my last cash flow question is, we said there was $238,000 in the general cash fund now. It's $238,000 cash. And then we said that, I think Steve, you said we had $148,000 in the ambulance savings account that can't be spent on other stuff. So is that 148 part of that 238? So the overall city cash balance is more like 90,000. If you take that 148 out, it can't be spent on this.
No, not overall city cash, it would be overall general fund. So the question was, is the 148 that's being set aside for the township subsidy cash, is that part of this number? And it is.
So one last question. What do we have to do to get these, all these fund balances back in, back in order so that there aren't deficit. We have that spreadsheet's gone now, but so the deficit funds really have to pay back the ambulance fund, correct?
The general fund, yeah.
The general fund, yeah. Linda, maybe the question is what, how long will it take? How long will it take to get the negative, because I understood that the negative fund balances have been out there for quite some time.
You know, we were left, I was left quite a bit of debt. I was left $952,000 worth of debt when I took over as clerk. It is now down $157,000, and that's over 5 years of careful management. I don't know how, I mean, it's going to take you another 5 years at that rate to do that much more. The only other way you could do it now would be to bond for it. And I don't know how long it will take.
And that is the $1 million question, because, yeah, the general fund in total has a due from of over $1 million, and it's coming from a lot of those capital projects fund. So the question gets back to that fund. How is that deficit going to be eliminated in those funds? Because that's obviously project cost that is higher than whatever other revenues or grants that's put in there. I don't know the answer to that question, but that's really the basis of the problem is cash flow wise, you have these other funds that have spent in the deficit, and you can't, somebody's got to pay for it. And cash flow, general fund is floating those funds basically temporary loan. How are those funds going to pay that back? That's basically the crutch of the question and the problem right there.
Yeah, the suggestion was we bond for that, but if we bond for it, isn't that just more debt we're taking on? Isn't that like second mortgage to also have to be paid back?
Yeah, you have to pay it back. You need to pay it back.
Right, I just would, you have to pay that back, and it might even increase the deficit depending on the terms of the bond. And normally, bonding is for a specific project. You can't just, I mean, I don't know, it's hard to bond that much back. Normally you bond to fund the project, so I don't know if that's even legal or even an appropriate way of doing it. It's just a matter of where do you get the money from to do
it? Good question and good answer. I had asked the same question at one point, and there were two ways of doing it. One is raising the levy, which doesn't help for the 7 years anyway, and the other one is bonding, and that's something that I don't want to do. We need to look at, as a council, we need to look at what the other options are, what sort of economic development, what we can do to get the finances of the city, which maybe I should ask you and ask the CPAs or the auditors, how would you define the financial health of the city now, and do we have some serious work to do?
I would say there's definitely a cash flow problem. And before you start any further projects to fund the ones that have already started, that haven't been funded.
And if you were going to borrow from funds, have a payment plan in a way to either pay them back, or how are these projects being funded? Because the trouble is, on a lot of them, you get just for example, $1 million project, you only have 500,000 grants. Right there, you're 500,000 behind the 8 ball where you're in the deficit. And that's been allowed to go on to the tune of over $1 million in the past. And a lot of it has to do, you can see the majority had to do with these capital projects funds. The airport capital project, historic harbor, the North 2nd Street capital projects, and and there's a little bit also in the Kita special revenue fund. That's a majority of the 1 million. That's the amount that's sitting at 12,318 as a amount to be able back to the town.
Okay, I think we need to wrap it up now. Very good questions, and we gave you some tough questions to answer. Also, Linda and Steve answered some tough questions. But I think that it's clear that the city council, most of us are here, and we understand that there are some challenges that we have to meet in the coming year, and we need to be creative and thoughtful and professional about how we do it. So it could be painful, but what we have to do, and we're committed to, I don't know if I can see some nods here from the council, but yes, these are things that we have to do. I want to thank you very much for coming out here. Good report, and we will go on with our agenda now. Did you have any final comments that you wanted to make? No, okay. All right, I didn't think so. All right, so we're going to move back.
I just have one more. I think it was wise for the city to have a meeting just to get stuff out, because a lot of times it maybe was talked about, nobody asked any questions, so a lot of uncertainty as far as what happened during the audit. So I think it was a wise choice to have a forum or a meeting like this. Thank everybody.
Well, I started talking out about civic engagement, and that's what we have here. There's a whole room full of concerned people here that are going to keep our nose to the grindstone and make sure that we do what we have to do. We've been elected to take care of these issues, and that's what we're going to do. And I'm confident that we'll be able to work with city staff and meet the challenge, but it may be painful. Dale, one last question or comment?
Yeah, I live in Greenwood, so I'm not, but I do work here in town. I just have a question. With the new building for Landrum, does any of that money come out of the general fund or out of the city, or is that all being funded by the IAAA?
The question is the new Lampa building completely funded by the IAAA, or is the city?
Is the city funding any of that?
So,
I'd like to know that.
sorry, I took that down, but the TIDA Special Revenue Fund is in a fund balance deficit of $139,534, and
A lot of shared minority existed in the charter school.
yeah, so that's the trouble with looking at it as a fund as a whole, because there are a couple different projects.
So as far as you're aware, that's all being covered by the IAAA?
The building of the building itself and the dirt work and site work, yes. After the building is built, half of the building will be the city's responsibility to take care of, because you will only be paying rent for half.
I just know that Carol would be devastated if you got the city being harmed until the building.
As for the building itself and the groundwork, that is all being funded by either the grant or the loan from the IAAA.
The other thing is, it seems to me, listening to all this, there's a lot of trying to reflect. It's like someone with 5 credit cards trying to pay 1 credit card to zero. No, it doesn't sound to me like we're having a lot of problems with borrowing. It sounds to me like the current city council and the current staff have all been handed a lot of debt and that kind of feeling. I don't think all trying to point and blame each other is really meaningful.
Okay, looks like Mark replenished the cookies over there. The council is going to move over back to the council table, and so you've got a minute to grab some coffee or a cookie if you'd like. Thank you very much. So that concludes number 3. I'd like to go to the minutes from the previous 2 meetings. And that's number 4 in our books here. For the council, does everyone have the minutes from the March 11th, 2019 meeting? Are there any changes or corrections? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support? Okay, the support. Is any further discussion? All in favor of accepting the minutes from March 11th, 2019, say aye. Aye. Opposed? And do you have the minutes in front of you from the council meeting March 25th, 2019? And any changes or corrections? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes from that.
Okay, and support?
Support.
Any further discussion? All in favor of accepting the minutes from March 25th, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimously carried. Moving on to public input, and here I think that this meeting has gone on quite a while already, so I'd like to limit the public input to 2 minutes, and I need you to come up here and use the microphone so that everyone can easily hear it.
I do have one item. I don't know if it's public input or not, but we need to move the next council meeting to the 29th. It would normally be the 22nd, but we need to move it to the 29th. So just... Yeah, we don't usually have the luxury of 5 Mondays in a month, but we do, so if everybody can make a note that it will be the 29th, not the 22nd. No, there's other different reasons. We have a planning and zoning meeting that we need to hold before the council meeting, and then we'll have a walkthrough of the lab building and a couple other items. So,
Is that the 29th, is that again Monday?
no, the 22nd actually is.
Okay. Okay, so Linda made the announcement in public input that the next council meeting is going to be April 29th.
5:30,
5:30
council chamber.
at the council chambers, and
It's
that is a
just
Monday.
1 week later than normal.
Yeah, it's 1 week later than normal.
Right.
Public input, 2 minutes max.
I don't know how to stand. I want to talk to you. Mary Shea, our citizen. 2 real quick things. One, is it possible for the city to post the minutes, the agenda for the meeting like a week or 2 days in advance on the city website? Because, we can go down physically to the building, but we got this website, which seems like a great place to put some information. More and more people are interested in being informed, and like the time minutes and agenda, just a request to please put those there besides, I don't know, just post them on the door. And then the other issue I have is, okay, sorry. I've been, there's been some discussion in the last few council meetings about some of the commissions and boards, TITA, those kind of things that are peopled by both citizens and council members, and this will just be my ignorance perhaps, but what process do you use to find volunteers on the citizen side to be on these boards? And, I've heard, oh, well, no one wants to be on, so we, the board, or the clerk or something, we recruit people. Well, how about doing, before you fill vacancies on those commissions and boards, how about going out to the public and both via, the paper record, other paper in Tower, the Timber Jay, which gets a bigger circulation, maybe even posters inviting us to apply for those positions, because they kind of come and get filled without us even knowing they're available. Maybe I'm missing reading the official notice in the paper, but just asking to be a little bit more proactive in searching out citizens who may be newly interested. Thank you.
Okay, statutes require that for at least some of the commissions and committees. And I think it's something that we need to discuss in the future, actually put those out so that we do get applications for participation. It's another thing I can talk to you a little bit about civic engagement, and I think if people see that they're actually wanted to be on these committees, that they'll respond to newspaper advertisements. So Mary, I think that's a good idea. And Linda, do you want to comment on which ones do need to be posted in the newspaper? I know that TITA is one.
No, I have to look at it.
Okay.
Just to be able to-
We'll follow up on that. Is there any other public input? Diane?
Diane Mahan here from the, we used to have a Queen Committee, and it was disbanded. And in May of 2018, the board had stated that they would transfer the money to the Tower Stand 4th of July Committee, which is now the Events Board. That has not happened, and there was about close to $7 grand in there.
That has to happen, and you have to submit expenditures, and we will reimburse you.
As per the minutes of the meeting, you just said it was going to be transferred into it.
It was transferred into the 4th of July fund, and all you have to do is submit invoices, and they will be reimbursed. And your chairman knows that.
Okay, well, we just checked on it tonight, and it hadn't been done, is what we were told.
She received a letter back in March saying it had been done. I reaffirmed the amount, and I reaffirmed that all we need is an invoice approved by your team, and we'll go ahead and pay it.
By the Queen Committee then, or by the?
By the 4th of July.
Okay. Randy, were you aware of that?
I missed the last meeting.
Okay, we just checked tonight, and all that. Okay.
Julie told me it was all good.
Who did?
Julie Johnson, I think her name's called Johnson.
Okay, as of tonight, when we checked with, it hadn't been done, so.
If you're looking for it in your, like in an account, no. We still have it, and you will have to spend it
And
now.
how much was in there total?
7,000, I think it's actually, 7,495, sounds right? It does not show on my sheet here.
So
Okay.
what was, some money has been submitted, some expenditures
No,
then?
I have no, the same amount of money that was in there last year is in there this year, and I have no reimbursements since the Queen Committee disbanded and the money was moved to the 4th of July fund.
So did the council decide that? It doesn't state that in the minutes that it had to be expenditures, it just said it would be transferred to the
4th of
events
July.
board,
It was transferred to the 4th of July fund.
which they
And
have their
that
own
has-
account. now.
In our, yeah, in order for the city to expend it, we need to pay it.
That, as I said, I guess that's different than what the minutes state then.
That is the advice of the auditors. We are
It
allowed
just says that, should and turn over all funds previously received and held by the city of Tower to the events board.
They are your funds to spend, all you have to do is give me an invoice.
That's your next meeting with that.
Okay, so I think the committees are going to work that out. Yes.
I'm on the events committee, and I do have the amount that's in the account. It's $7,496.85.
I would agree with that.
Thank you.
All you have to do is give me invoices, and I will pay that amount until there's none left. And I can give you a balance at any time.
I don't think they were aware that they needed, you said a letter on who it went to.
It went to Julie. She's the one that
Okay.
requested it. She's the one that came up and asked about it. She's the one that originally advised us that, and requested that the funds go to the 4th of July fund. So that's who we've been dealing with the whole time.
Okay, I'm going to suggest that the committees get together, work this out, Linda with Randy.
Yeah, Randy, yeah.
And work that out, and if it's an issue that needs to come before the council, please bring it to us as an agenda item. We'll follow up on that. There's several other public meeting or public input things that have come up in the past too that we have to get back to and put on the agenda, including, I think, having chickens in town. We'll work on that. Is there any other public opinion, public input?
I'd like to say one thing. I'm way out of town, but I can't hear what you're saying. I have acoustic Roma don't hear out of this here, so could you pass your wonderful microphone on each? I'd like to hear what you have to say, or I can't hear.
I've been trying to do that. I'll work at it.
You can come sit here, Carol.
No, I understand that, but I think others couldn't hear me. And we'd like to hear what you have to say.
I'm Dave Sederberg in Tower, and I guess I'd just like the city council members and people look at it, when I hear things like we have our water and sewer, but it doesn't cover the cost of it, and we're robbing other funds to pay for it, that maybe we should be looking at some of those funds that we aren't covering, and I mean, we're gonna have to pay for it somehow, but to be robbing other things to pay for it.
Absolutely. Okay, is there any other public opinion? Okay, Steve.
You've all been really good about using less than 2 minutes, except for the discussion that we started.
Everybody else gets public input, I get public opinion. So here I go. I don't think I should even have to stand up here and say this, but I see that number 10 on the agenda tonight is rear its ugly head again. That's the mayor misconduct. And we've all heard tonight what a deep hole we're in. You know, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to address that. And these types of things, like that complaint, are just a distraction. They're worse than a distraction. They're counterproductive. And I just want to beseech the council to put this behind us tonight if you can. Because unless and until we do that, we're not going to be able to focus on what's important, which is moving the town forward and building it up instead of tearing it down. And I would guess that there's more than a few people here tonight that agree with that sentiment.
Thank you, Steve. Yes, and we'll move as expeditiously as we can. I think that's all of the public input. So we'll move on to correspondence. There are two correspondence items, Linda. Can I give you the microphone?
I'll just yell.
Seriously, please.
There are two letters in the packet. The first letter.
Can't hear you.
Seriously? The first letter says, "Thank you all so much for the assistance on March 15th. I was in pain, scared, and worried, and you all took so good care of me. Your calm assurance, medical skills, and compassion shown were all appreciated. I feel so blessed, and your team helped me to get me to the help I needed. Sincerely, B." I cannot say her name as she is an ambulance patient. The EMTs on this run were Tammy Ellison, Dean Dowden, and Steve Altenberg.
Good job for those of you that took care of that patient. And the second one, Linda, Department of Health, THM correspondence.
Yes, we received correspondence from the Department of Health regarding haliocetic trihalomethamine levels in our water. Again, for the quarter, tested on 2/19/19, the city passed. If you want to see the results in more detail, we have them here, or you can stop by City Hall.
Any comments or questions? Okay, moving on to number 7, reports from officers, engineers, commissions, and committees. And we'll go with Matt, SEH. Would you mind using the mic?
Not at all.
You've got one of those booming voices.
I can talk as long as you want me to talk, but I'll use the mic.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, thank you. I'm Matt Wolf. I serve as the City of Tower city engineer. You've got a report in your packet. I'm not going to read it word for word, but I will hit on a few items and then answer questions that you may have. Number 1, the Hoon Point Campground Force Main and Lift Station. There is not a lot of update there other than we met with your city attorney here earlier today. Kind of came up with a plan to be meeting with the contractor to get this finally resolved, and it looks like we're going to have a meeting next Monday down in Virginia to hopefully come to a final resolution on that project and get it closed out. The Harbor Townhome development, not a lot of movement on that one. The outstanding item on that is our final plat. We have made all of the changes coming to to agreement with the county. 3 outstanding items that are since the last meeting, or probably 2 meetings. Number 1 is the easements from the DNR. Myself and Andy have both had conversations in the last week, again with the DNR, and have come up with a initial solution here is of drafting the easement agreements, and we will have those to the DNR later this week. So then it will get run up the flagpole from their end. The second item is the lien releases from IRRD and Friends and Bank. We provided language to Linda. Documents got drafted and sent to both entities. They asked for the addition of a legal description, which Linda and I figured out earlier today. So those letters should be going out, I would imagine, tomorrow or the next day. And then the final item, Linda, I guess, was more in your court as far as the state documentation that the city boundary actually has changed and has been recorded.
It has not been recorded, but it has been processed. That's what I got.
Okay, it's not been recorded, but has been processed. So those are the 3 items that we are still waiting for, and once all 3 of those are done, we'll be able to sign and approve the plat. Pine Street reconstruction, I guess there's not a lot of updates there, with the exception of we are meeting, well, I'll be up here on April 24th. We have a couple of meetings scheduled, and one of the agenda items on that is going to be talking about Pine Street status, schedule for bidding, etc., and then the local match that is required from the city and what funds that might be coming from. The Trails project, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The LCCMR Trailhead project, we provided Linda with a few options a couple of weeks ago. I believe that went to planning and zoning, or will go to planning and zoning. And we have a meeting set up on the 18th with all of the agencies, Army Corps, DNR, etc., because there is a significant proposed wetland impact. So we're having a pre-coordination meeting with them prior to moving forward any further to make sure that what we're trying to do is going to be permissible. The City of Tower sign, Linda informed me later last week, again, the city is looking to move the one location from MnDOT property back to City of Tower property. I notified MnDOT last week of that. They have some exhibits they have to update, and then we'll get that processed. Airport should be pretty self-explanatory. Lampa Manufacturing, you'll see item B there. The contractors notified us they want a final walkthrough of the interior on Monday the 22nd. So we will be up here with our architects. I believe Dale's going to join, and we'll be doing a final walkthrough of the interior of that. The exterior hopefully will also be pretty much complete, with the exception of the site paving. Obviously, we're a little bit under the control of Mother Nature here to get the final landscaping, etc. done. Standing Bear Marina, you have a agenda item tonight. They finished the demolition. I received their certified payrolls, IC 134, everything is good to go, and I prepared a pay request, so that is on the agenda for later. Capital improvement plan, I actually have a draft of that done because of the size and length of the agenda tonight. It did not make it on there, but I think it might be appropriate, Linda and Mayor, if you want to meet with us separately prior to the next council meeting, and we can show you our initial findings. Then if you want to provide input and then give me direction as to whether you want a council presentation or just finish it up and give it to the council. I just need the direction of what you want to actually do with the final product. So, okay. So again, if you want to see it beforehand, okay. And then the North 2nd Street easement, that is where the church property is. So a couple things I can tell you for sure, and a couple things I can't tell you for sure. So one, the church owns that parcel in its entirety. 2nd Street, as you probably know, used to be a state highway. When the state turned that back over, turned back to the city, it was the late 40s, early 50s, I forget when it was. There was an exhibit that went with that turn back, and it showed the road pavement width only as being left over as a street easement. I've reached out to the state a number of times to try to find the original turn back document to see if there's a description of the road. Have not gotten anything back from that. We have not found any documentation since that late 40s, early 50s that any other things were done with that easement out there. So I don't have an exact answer for you, but it is highly likely that yes, you do have a street easement, but it would have been the original road pavement width only. So the parking areas, etc., I don't see any way that the city would be responsible for those, unless there's other documents that exist that either didn't get recorded or are sitting somewhere that we were not able to find. So if the city or church had any other documents, we'd certainly want to see those. Otherwise, I would tell you, you definitely have responsibility for the city street portion, but not likely any of the parking areas. But again, I made a request to the state to see if there's other documentation that exists out there, and if anyone has any, that would be.
For the Catholic Church, is that what you're talking about?
Correct.
Yes.
I'd like to know flat maps and when that might be helpful.
Yeah, if you can find, like I said, we found the turn back occurred from the state to the city.
The big paved part of it, and then they, I got something.
Yeah, and so the way it was showed is the original pavement width, let's just call it 30 feet, was which was left for an easement to the city for the street. Everything beyond that is private property. But again, it only showed it in a map. It didn't have a legal description, which is what I'm looking for. And if it doesn't exist, then that's the best that we're going to have. So.
Okay, just a clarification of this conversation, did you need to make to the audience? Probably not. Okay, we're good.
So with that, any questions I can answer on the report?
Any questions for Matt?
Could you just clarify what the trailhead was for, which trail?
Oh, the Trailhead project on the, you call it north or west side of the bridge where the old city boat launch, city DNR boat launch used to be. There is a application that went into the LCCMR fund 2 years ago now to build a trailhead there and also a kayak and canoe launch area. And so that would extend Main Street. If you can picture Main Street coming down there and building a lot that would be able to be utilized in the winter for snowmobile, parking storage, and in the summer for paddlers, bikers, walkers, etc.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Article 2, ambulance director's report, Steve.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, nothing too exciting to report. We're end of March, we were at 108 runs. Just coming out of the quiet time of the year, so things should start slowly picking up again. Really, that's it. I don't have anything else to say. Oh, well, I don't know if they have any questions.
Any questions of Steve on the ambulance report? Okay, let's move on to fire.
Pretty straightforward on fire. We just had one semi-serious fire out in the kitchen at Fortune Bay. The other stuff was EMS assists and water alarm over at the school and or clinic. I believe that one was again. We had a little bit of issues this year with that. Yeah, everything else is pretty status quo.
Okay, questions for Steve? Moving on to the police report. Dan. Is Dan still? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, now he's got a great voice. Can everyone hear him?
March 2019, we dealt with 148 calls. There was 1 arrest, 9 formal charges. Your mileage is indicated. The Tahoe Power Owns had 1,258 miles put on it. The Explorer had 464 miles put on it. That number is a discrepancy as I take vacation time and use it up. So then the part-timers will drive the older of the squads if there should be damage. We're not out a major squad, I should say. So that's been a practice we did
with the last two, the White Tahoe and Brown Tahoe. Under miscellaneous stuff, I just want everyone to be aware that with warmer temperatures, we're going to see a lot more people walking, more kids out on the road, people trying to use the crosswalks. We're going to see motorcycles out too, so pay attention, please. Other than that, there's a call summary listed at the bottom of the page. Okay, any questions for Dan? Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to Tower Economic Development Authority.
Joan Broughton with the TDA committee. We will be looking for, advertising for, is it 2 positions that are open on the committee? And we will be seeking names for, we decided we'd like to have a marketing committee for marketing our tower city. We want to update the tower website and make it more user-friendly, more appealing. We want a trail brochure of all the surrounding trails that Tower is centrally located in. We've got the Arrowhead, Taconite, snowmobile trails. They merge right here in Tower. Very popular for the snowmobilers. We've got the cross-country ski trail, Howard Wagner, that Mary Shed is spearheading with a great group of people to get that up and rolling again. ATV, the Prospector Trail that they're developing, and that'll be coming right on this side of Tower, Kugler area. Got the Vermilion Trail that we're trying to develop. It's like a biking, hiking trail that'll be on the south shore of Lake Vermilion with Tower meeting up with Cook. That's still in the planning stages, but we're getting somewhere. And then I'm trying to think, there's the trails, hiking, biking trail that already exists that hooks up to Sedan to the new Lake Vermilion State Park. So we'd like to see a brochure with all that listed on it and have that on our Tower website as well. We want to do a Main Street inventory to let people know what is available on Main Street for rent or to purchase for businesses or to rent for upstairs apartment or upper level apartments. Let's see. The Wasabi Trail and kiosk over here is in disrepair, so we'd like to see that get fixed up or removed one or the other. It looks pretty shabby, but I think it could get fixed up. So we're going to ask for help with that. And what else? There was quite a few things we went over in our meeting minutes. Hopefully, are those going to be posted on the? Once we approve them. Okay, on the Tower website. So yeah, we would love to have. We will be advertising for people to be on committees. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Here's a question.
There's mention of a walkthrough at the new Lampa building on Monday, April 22nd. Do you know what time that would be?
I don't know the time. That's one for me.
Oh, okay.
That's for me. I don't know the time, because I personally will not be there. Brian, our architect, will be, but I can send it back to you.
That'd be great. Can that be announced or something?
Yeah, is that going to be announced for the walkthrough?
This is not a public walkthrough. This is a final inspection of the building to make sure it was built per spec, so it's not going to be open to the public. It's
Good to know.
yeah.
I see relief here in the back of the room. Probably should have asked you. Thank you very much. And Joan, thank you very much for your report.
There will be an open house at some point.
Yeah, and we'll work with you on that. And then Linda, the treasurer's report. Mike, if you wouldn't mind.
You skipped the airport report anyway.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped the airport commission report.
I think the airport commission's report is pretty much summed up into one issue. It is a snow removal equipment shelter for the New Holland tractor. If anybody was in town today, you probably saw it sweeping the streets. That is our largest problem out there. We are continually paying and rocking it around, sometimes using cold storage, which isn't the best for hydraulics and whatnot. So we do need to address something long-term, a long-term solution for that. And that's pretty much what they meant about. As for the treasurer's report, there's a copy of the revenues and expenditures through February. I don't know what else you want to know.
Could you just read off the high points?
There's $303,000 in our savings accounts and our CDs. There's currently $129,000 in the general fund, $11,000 in our commercial rehab fund. Some checks and whatnot outstanding, leaving our current general fund balance at $134,987. We are having issues with our city software. That's why it's on the agenda. And I would have normally given you more up-to-date data, but I am blocked out. I have limited function in it. And before we do anything more with it and make any huge steps as far as data entry, we want to get it working right. And that's a challenge. And this software has been a challenge since day one, and it's got to go to the curb. It is time to let it go.
Well, how long have you had that?
I would think since 2004. And we have battled and we have recreated data. At this point, we are sitting here patiently awaiting finding out where our wastewater, because they also use the same system. And we are afraid that we will lose the data back to November. We have backups. We continually try to fight with this software. We'll get to it more when we get to that item.
Okay, any questions for Linda on the treasurer's report? Appreciate having you input that, Linda. And as I said earlier, we are working on finding a finance committee that will help us develop a snapshot that's easy to review. People probably can't hear me. We are working on putting together a snapshot or dashboard view of city finances that will be easy to follow and also to follow the cash flow. So thank you very much, Linda, for including the treasurer's report in this month's meeting. That concludes the reports from officers, engineers, commissions, and committees. Are there any further questions for any of those reports? Is there a motion to accept? Support? Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, unanimous. Moving on to 8, unfinished business, grievance number 6810, remedies.
At the last meeting, you asked me to check with the city attorney who has declined to respond, so I leave you in the same state that you were in before. The attorney Kevin Beck from Kelly and Lemons has said that the grievance committee is binding. The League of Minnesota Cities has said it is binding, and I can provide to you 3 instances of past practice which also show it was binding with previous grievance.
Andy, do you have any comments?
You know, where I don't, I mean, again, as I said, I think a number of times, I mean, I just feel I've got a conflict. I mean, I work so closely with Linda, I work with the council, I work with the mayor, and I've said from the forefront that I wasn't going to be involved in this previous decision. So, I mean, I don't have anything to add at this point, and I think I've been clear since the first meeting, so.
Okay. Is the council clear on what the grievance committees? Oh. Thanks for reminding me. Is the council familiar with the terms that the grievance committee has approved in their committee meeting? The grievance committee chair is here. Do you want to read that finding?
I can, if you want me to go through it. You want me to just read the remedies or the whole thing?
The whole thing, what was presented by...
Brooks on the grievance committee. So yes, does the council want me to read the whole thing or just the actual remedies? And if anybody wants to read the whole thing, they can get copies.
Read the whole thing.
Go ahead and read the whole thing.
All right, remedy for grievance number 6810, March 22nd, 2019. As the committee has upheld in whole the union's grievance number 6810, the committee hereby offers the following settlement and remedies. Section 1, cease and desist. Number 1, cease and desist. Mayor Orland Kringstad will immediately stop all actions as related to his report of findings, misconduct allegations, and performance evaluation of Ms. Keith. Reasoning. Mayor Kringstad conducted an unauthorized investigation against Ms. Keith using public and private data in his investigation to build his case against Ms. Keith, and then presented the report of findings in a closed meeting. This is clearly not allowed by any state law or League of Minnesota Cities rules and guidelines. Number 2, cease and desist. The City Council will immediately stop all actions as related to Mayor Kringstad's report of findings, misconduct allegations, and performance evaluation of Ms. Keith. Reasoning, Mayor Kringstad's investigation and report of findings did not follow past practices, city policies, or any law that would allow any member of the City Council or the Council as a whole to forgo an employee's right to due process when a concern of conduct is raised. Therefore, the Council cannot take actions based on an investigation and report of findings that was never authorized by the Council. Section 2, to be made whole. Mayor Orland Kringstad will not be permitted to participate in any way in any future HR matters concerning Ms. Keith. Reasoning, in order to end the hostile work environment created by the mayor between Ms. Keith and the council itself by disregarding the due process of an employee, the mayor fostered a perception of bias and unwillingness to follow procedures and policies. This will restore Article 1 in the city policies of promoting peaceful relations, code of ethics, and standards of conduct. Number 2, an apology letter will be issued from the City Council to the City Clerk Treasurer acknowledging their failure to protect their employee, Ms. Keith, with due process. This not only fostered a hostile work environment, but created disparate treatment towards Ms. Keith in city meetings and in public. This letter will be read during a public city meeting so that it is an official part of the city's records. The ends justifies the means is not a valid reason to ignore the protection of due process afforded to employees in the labor laws or any other applicable laws or city policies. Reasoning, the investigation and report of findings being not authorized by the council was improper, therefore every action that stemmed from that misstep was improper. City of Tower Grievance Committee.
Okay, yes.
Who does the grievance committee consist of?
I'm on the grievance committee.
The grievance committee is Steve Altenberg, the chair, Steve Abramson, council member, and Brooke Anderson, council member.
You don't have any citizens on this committee?
Yes, I'm there as a citizen.
You're an employee.
But I'm not part of the grievance. I'm not entitled to the grievance because I'm not part of the union. Only the...
You don't consider a conflict of interest between you and me?
No.
Okay.
It's not a conflict of interest. She doesn't answer to me. I technically answer to her and them.
That's a conflict of interest.
No, it isn't. How is it a conflict of interest?
Because it's your
public input here, Mayor.
You can't be expected to be impartial when it comes to passing laws. That's,
Are we in public input here?
no, I'm.
Oh, okay.
Don't all agree with
At the previous meeting, I thought I had it here, but at the previous meeting, when this was read, I read a response that I wrote to Mr. Altenberg regarding this. First of all, I don't believe that that letter was taken into consideration during their deliberations. Secondly, I do reject categorically the findings of this grievance committee for a number of reasons. The chair of the grievance committee has a grievance, outstanding grievance against me, which is going to be taken up later in this meeting. I think that is wrong. And then secondly, there is evidence that the third member of the grievance committee was never invited to that meeting. It's clear that the city clerk and the chair of the grievance committee know that this individual uses his personal email, not the City of Tower email, because of security concerns. And so therefore, this remedy was devised by two individuals, and I don't seriously believe that the meeting was posted publicly in time to actually have a legal posted public meeting. So again, excuse me, Linda, I categorically reject the findings of the grievance committee, which I think makes this issue come to the council for vote to take it to the next step.
You made one misstep there. I was not responsible for sending out that agenda.
Nor was I. The deputy clerk.
I had no involvement in any of the agendas.
And the deputy clerk posted and has stated that she posted it on Tuesday morning. So unless you're calling her a liar as well, it was.
I'm not calling anyone a liar. I'm just saying that the findings are incorrect. And I left for Minneapolis on Wednesday. I stopped at City Hall to see if there was any postings for meetings, and I didn't see any. And other individuals have said the same. To the deputy clerk, my apologies if there was a posting. I don't believe there was.
It was on the side window, because the wastewater board went on the main door.
So the next step, I believe, is to ask the city council. Can I know that you're staying out of this city attorney because you work with both sides here, Andy. But if I'm rejecting the findings of this grievance committee, what is the next step?
Well, I think it's up to the council. Certainly the council could engage another attorney or hire someone to give them an opinion on, you've got one opinion, it sounds like, from the league, and, you've got some other things from, Ms. Keith, but certainly you could get an opinion from someone else as to, the validity. Can the grievance committee bind the council? I think that's the question. And certainly you would have the option to seek an opinion on that if that's what you want.
Can I ask, how would it make sense when a grievance is against the council, that they would have the right to reject the findings if they don't like it? Because of course, if it goes against them, they might not like it.
I think the concern comes in the process. The concern that I'm hearing is the process. The members involved in the grievance committee, and there's kind of these outliers in the situation that are causing some concern about the findings. And so, Linda, did you mention you talked to some other legal counsel?
Yeah, I talked to Kevin Beck from Kelly and Lemons, but he is associated with the Teamsters.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But that was his response, as well as the league attorney. And then I do have past practice with the grievance committee issued findings, the employee accepted it, and it actually involved expending city dollars, and it did not go back to the council for approval. And I have two other similar situations where the grievance committee was behind it.
Okay, so you're sure there's some precedent in these kinds of situations that was done through?
Yes.
Those were for employees?
Yes, they were.
That's not a council member.
So I'm wondering,
It's the same exact situation as mine.
so given some of the questions that have been risen around this, I think you had mentioned, is there another law firm that we've worked with before?
I could try to reach out to another firm and get another answer.
Okay, because I'm wondering if that would be an appropriate step at this point. I'm not sure, and that's why I'm bringing it up.
Why wouldn't the council reach out?
Pardon?
Why wouldn't this independent council member reach out?
That's a good question.
Instead of a party that's, the complaint?
No, and that makes good sense, and that's why I'm talking out loud about this.
Might be a regular person.
What did I just say?
Exigencies that exist, which include my public comment last time, which is to have the council look at the issue of what I strongly feel is a conflict of interest with Steve already, so.
So what's happened too, though, is that this remedy has been written and already submitted to the union, correct?
Correct, and accepted.
And accepted by the union. So now,
Two people.
so kind of regardless of the way it got there, and then I think we would need some guidance on how we go about bringing it back. So.
I have a question. How much is this going to cost? You keep saying that it's so low. So how much more are we going to spend on that?
I don't know.
The grievance committee meetings were taped, the city has those. The decision to uphold the grievance was based on law and the city's own policies. Period. You can review the tapes yourself. It is not personal because it cannot be.
I would just say that, there were probably some mistakes in getting the meeting information to me. I'm not on the city's actual official web or email yet, because primarily one of the reasons was I didn't really trust it at first, for some good reason. So I never was able to attend that meeting, which disturbs me a little bit because I had a lot of questions. I was hoping that the city attorney would be there to answer some of those questions. So the fact that I wasn't able to attend that's somewhat problematical to me. And I'm kind of with Rachel on the fact that there just seems to be so much personality conflict in this. It's hard for me to feel that the remedy for grievance is a fair one. So, I for one would like to see a different opinion as to what one could do. I don't like dragging this on any more than anybody else does, but I also want to feel in the end that it's fair to both parties. The mayor here, he's a newly elected official. He's bound to make a few errors. I was here 16 years, and I made many errors. And I've never seen such a rush to condemn something, and that really bothers me. So I would be in favor of getting another opinion, and not just an opinion, what as a citizen, how would you challenge that, if at all? And then at least get some sense of unbiasedness in the whole thing for me, so.
Since the grievance, remedy was read into record, I do have the letter here that I sent to Mr. Altenberg, the chair of the grievance committee, on the 13th of March.
and it's my reply. Was this read and actually taken into consideration at your meeting?
Yes, in the second meeting, which all of us were there at that second meeting, which at the end of that second meeting is where the grievance was held up in full. Again, it's on video, so.
Okay.
Review it.
Let me just explain the other side of this. This is a letter regarding Teamsters Local 320, grievance 6810, Linda Keith Linda, and attention to Steve Oldenburg. Teamsters Local 320 grievance number 6810 from Mr. Eric Skoog is attached. I responded to Mr. Skoog on February 26, 2019, noting receipt of his letter received via email on February 20th, 2019, also attached to this letter. I understand that he has asked for a response to said grievance by March 14th. Since Mr. Skoog's letter and grievance were initially directed to me, I'm responding to you as follows. Facts of grievance. And this refers directly to the grievance form that was signed by Ms. Keith and Mr. Skoog. And I note that the following are not necessarily facts, only called facts by the union. To me, they're only allegations, and Mr. Skoog and his union member choose to report them. Number one, on or about Monday, February 11th, 2019, Mayor Kringstad closed a city council meeting to conduct a performance evaluation on Ms. Keith. During said meeting, Mr. Kringstad provided a packet which included a report of findings. However, at no time was he directed by the council to conduct an investigation, and the purpose of said meeting was determined not to be a performance evaluation. I might point out that it was determined not to be a performance evaluation by Mr. Skoog. My answer to Mr. Skoog is this. Mr. Skoog is wrong. This was in fact a performance review, the term proposed by City of Towers City Attorney when he was informed about and why the background research was done. I cannot say more because of the essence of the research is or was referred to in the closed performance appraisal, which was cut short by Mr. Skoog. In other words, we did not complete that performance review because of him. Number two, furthermore, and this is from Mr. Skoog, his action, meaning Mr. Kringstad, I presume, created disparate treatment as no other employee has been subjected to a performance evaluation. My answer to Mr. Skoog is this. A, I would suggest replacing the term subjected to granted. And B, this was not discriminatory action. No other employees reviewed his terms. Since the clerk treasurer position is the only employee who reports directly to the Tower City Council, all other employees would be given performance appraisals by the city clerk treasurer and the Employee Relations Committee. Although not included in the Teamsters Union 320 grievance 610, Mr. Skoog has on several occasions accused city councilors who participated in the council closed session of leaking private information from said closed meeting, to the public and the media. This is false and will be proven to be so. On the contrary, Mr. Skoog has himself breached the privacy of his union member on several occasions, as has his union client, also to be proven by public testimony when the time comes. To be specific, A, first, during the February 25th City Council meeting, the clerk treasurer union representative, during public input, read a letter written by the union's law firm stating that the article published in the Timber Jay newspaper was almost verbatim with my report, which was given only in the closed meeting to the city councilors April 28, 2019. Thereby, Mr. Skoog now disclosing in essence the very information he was accusing others of leaking to the general public. B, second, at the conclusion of the Tower City Grievance Committee meeting, March 5th, 2019, Mr. Skoog accosted the publisher of Timber J newspaper and accused Mr. Hellenberger of announcing in the headline of his article on the city council meeting that there was an investigation underway. The Timber J article referred only to Timber J's own investigation. The publisher knew nothing of a city investigation before Mr. Skoog disclosed it to all present. I don't believe that was very prudent of Mr. Skoog. At the appropriate time, there will be witness testimony provided that will show that the city clerk treasurer disclosed information that occurred during the closed meeting to the general public. This information was relayed to me, quote, on the street, unquote, by a Tower resident. I asked where that information came from and was given the chain of disclosure, which led to the city clerk. Respectfully, Orland Creek, Mayor of Tower. So this is the background for why I say that there is no basis for this remedy that was written by 2 members of the 3-member committee, the chair of which has a grievance himself against me at this time, and who also, which we'll take up in a separate discussion, should not be chair of a committee, of a grievance committee, when he himself is the department head of 2 of the largest departments employed by the city of Tower in our city. Therefore, I categorically do not accept this so-called remedy.
I'm going to make a motion based on I'm just going to make a motion based on comments by the city attorney that a second opinion is warranted. So my motion would be to have an independent person from the council, if possible, contact a different attorney to find out what, if anything, can be different or changed based on what's been presented to us. So that's my motion for independent. I just feel it's important that, for me, at the personal level, it's just, I don't feel this whole thing's been fair at all, and it's really hard for me to approve something that I just don't feel it's been fair.
Support for the motion?
Support.
Is there any further discussion? I'm going to abstain. All in favor of the motion as stated by Councillor Abramson, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, the motion carries. Okay, thank you. So the next would be to either have a volunteer or to make a motion for who will contact a third employee, attorney.
I think it's me.
Okay, can you make that a motion?
Can I make a motion to make myself?
I'll make the motion for Rachel to contact.
Okay, is support. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you, Rachel. So that concludes 8.1. I really do want to get you home for the final 4 and dinner. Board of Appeals and Equalization, Linda?
Somebody back there.
Okay, the Board of Equalization is set for, I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, but I just want to say it one more time. This will be the last time we talk about it. It is set for May 7th from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the City Council.
And the date again?
It's May 7th. you as council need to do.
Okay, grievance committee policy number 8.3. That was just informational, correct?
Nope, you need to pass this policy.
Okay. So is there a motion to set that date?
No, oh, sorry, on the last one, yeah, that was, I thought you were talking about.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, sorry. So the grievance policy, grievance committee policy.
This would be for the operating procedures for that.
So I would suggest that we wait to until after we get some clarification on our So as far as the grievance committee policy, I would suggest that we wait to take any action on that until we have some more information from whomever I consult legally.
I would concur with that. I also think that the council needs to look at the grievance committee and make certain changes to the makeup of that committee to make it more fair and equitable in the future. Yeah. So there's, we need to have a move to table it.
The grievance committee policy.
Support the table? Okay, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. Public input policy, 8.4. Um, 8.4 public comment policy is in your packet. And Linda, is there any changes from what?
Yes, I gave you two. I gave you a restricted one and a less restricted one. I think everybody kind of thought the first one was a little bit too, so I kind of pared it down and looked at some other cities and came up with one that was slightly less restrictive.
Okay. I felt that this is basically what we're doing today.
Pretty close, yes.
Except the form to be filled out, that's optional.
No, the only thing the first one would require is just that you sign in prior to the meeting and state that you want to speak. And then you would take that sign-in sheet and call those speakers from that sheet. You don't have to say what your subject is, or you would just say that you want to speak and then you would be called upon.
I'm fine with that. Any comments?
The only one that I've been concerned with is when speaking provide 10 copies.
Which one are you looking at?
27.
You can either bring 10 copies of your own, or if you can come up earlier enough where the city staff can make a copy, I'm fine with that. But if you're going to show up at the meeting with the copies, which is customary lately, yeah. No, if you come up early enough, then we can actually get them in the packet as well.
This to me seems to comply with our code of ethics and behavior at council meetings.
Yes, there is a clause in there about being respectful, treating others with respect. I don't remember what you call it.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept? Or is there a motion either way?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Is there support?
I'll support that.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passed unanimously. Okay, we're on to number 9, new business, resolution 2019-003, resolution requesting road and transit funding. Linda?
This is the resolution you want to pass.
Okay, I attended a rally for transportation road funding. It specifically benefits smaller towns like us, and this is a resolution that been passed to us by the League of Minnesota Cities. I think it's a good one for us to support and to support that transportation bill. And I can read the whole thing if you want me to, but it's 2 pages. I didn't think so. Okay, any discussion regarding the resolution? Is there a motion to accept? Is there a second? Okay, any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Linda, would you handle getting that to the League of Minnesota Cities?
Yes.
Thank you. Number 9.2, Cities of the Lake, Cities by the Lake training expenditure.
You can talk, this is your training that you want to go to.
Okay, so the Cities by the Lake training expenditure is an invitation by the League of Minnesota Cities for mayors to attend their annual meeting, which is in Duluth. I've become somewhat active, so almost become a full-time mayor here in some ways. But I found it very advantageous to be closely involved with what the League of Minnesota Cities is doing. It's very good networking, and the networking leads to funding, and funding that the city sorely needs for the projects. And I would like to attend the annual meeting that will be held in June in Duluth. Any discussion? Okay.
There is a fee for this training, and as you heard in the previous meetings, we don't have any further training dollars. So if you approve this, I need to know where you want me to pull the money from.
What's the cost of this?
I believe it was $295.
What about mileage?
How much does it cost?
Plus the mileage.
$295.
And the mileage?
And the mileage. Yes. One further comment that I will say about this. I already mentioned the networking, which is very beneficial. The league has approached me about being on one of their policy committees. It's something that I think that I can be helpful with, and also it brings more visibility to the city of Tower, which I believe will help us in a number of different ways in the future, not the least of which is funding sources. The networking is closely networked with the state legislature and other state agencies, and that's why I believe it would be advantageous. So yes, there is a cost. It's $295 plus mileage to Duluth and back.
Just a comment that I think it's really important that the mayor or any city council member be active in educating themselves as to what's out there, and the networking is huge. Because without the networking, there's just no way to find the funds that are out there for all kinds of things. So I encourage that, but part of it is that we do still have to watch the budget a little bit, but I think we do have to put some money in there and try to use it as prudently as possible. But without getting out there networking, it makes our jobs even tougher. So I encourage that from all the councilors here. So,
is there a motion? And I'll be asking for more discussion.
I'll make that motion.
Is there support?
What's the motion?
Motion is to, allow the city to
Pardon?
Where are you pulling the money from?
I'll work with you on finding the funding for it. If there's absolutely no funding,
You've already expended all of your council training dollars.
We're putting another fund.
We need to
Well, we
tell
had
you,
that one fund, what,
are you taking it out of reserves, is that the
that would
plan?
probably be where we would have to take it.
I don't care, I'm just,
Yeah,
you
that's
gotta,
what I would suggest that it comes from if there's no other play. But like I said, we have to encourage the whole, because it's very important. So we gotta be careful where we're spending money too.
right, because this one is also open to clerks too, and we pass on it because of the funding, so it'd be nice if we all had a chance to go.
So this opens a really good discussion point for the teachers.
Mhm.
As far as, I'm just saying this opens a good discussion point for the future that I wholeheartedly agree that education is important. And while we have financial issues that we need to see to and we don't want to be spending money willy-nilly, I think we need to look forward and make sure that we are doing that networking and keeping ourselves up to date as a council to make sure that we're doing what we can to address our issues. And that includes allowing for the future for clerk training as needed and wanted, so.
agree with that. Any further, now, do you have the motion?
So now I have it as allow the expense and pull the money from reserves.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye, and I'll abstain. Opposed? I'm abstaining. So the motion passed. Thank you very much. Mayor's mileage allowance is 9.3.
Again, you've exhausted the amount of money I had set aside. You don't have funds to pay the mileage you submitted, nor do I have the funds to cover your request of $500 a month.
Okay, there's two issues there. The second one, the first one is just simply covering mileage. And I'm part of the Ramsey, the Range Association of Municipalities and Schools, and also the Mayor's, the Range Mayor's Council, and that's what this mileage is for. I also went to an IRRB boot camp training for council management, and that was very beneficial. That's part of what I have in here. The $500 is not something that would be spent every month, but it would be the ability, it would really equal the ability that you have, Linda, in expending up to $500. And I'm saying that sometimes these opportunities come up between council meetings, and I have to make a decision to go or not. Now, if this isn't passed, I'd very likely go anyway, but it is something that I'm doing for the city.
None of these meetings are related to Rams, and the travel to the city should have been approved before you went. And that conference was scheduled well in advance, so I guess I'm not following that. And typically I did look in the past, and Mayor Carlson, he only took mileage to Duluth and once to the cities. And when Councilor Abrahamson was the mayor, the only mileage he put in was 4 trips to the cities that were authorized by the council.
I'll just have to say that when I did my mileage thing, I was fortunate enough to, because I'm in the business of travel and real estate, I always tried to do the city business on my business time too, so that helped me keep my mileage down. So, and then I had a daughter in the city, so usually I didn't charge for any lodging or anything. I always had plenty of places to stay. So it's a little different for me. So, but I know the mayor asked for $500, and I don't know if that means monthly, but that's a pretty hard number to. That's what you, or just
That's contingent upon things coming up.
Yeah, historically, I can tell you what, for myself, typically, when I went to anything, I usually, and that policy was it had to be approved by the city clerk, and and the mayor. What I always did was I went to the city clerk and said, hey, I'd like to go to this, and what was the benefit to the city, and we always agreed on that, and so it wasn't an issue. And then as far as the mileage goes, again, I tried to make it a business thing for myself, so that helped me. So, I mean, I'm okay with some kind of thing, but it still has to, I believe it still has to be approved. It should be approved by the clerk also still, you know, I think we need to have that. And I mean, if there's an issue that the mayor and the clerk doesn't feel, you know, that there's some kind of a problem there, then at least maybe a third council member be contacted or something, but I know because it could easily, well, like we're talking last night, there's this budget issue, and so I'll go back to it again. I think it's very important that the mayor and any council member will get out there, but we also have to be conscious of the way we're spending that, so.
Okay, I'll just also just mention that I'm prudent in my travel. When I can stay with my daughter or son in the cities, I do so, or otherwise. But if this is going to be a big issue, it can be tabled or dropped, or a motion can be made to deny it. So we should move on.
I would say can we bring this up like next?
Do you want to table it?
Yeah, and then I guess I would just like to table it so we can talk about how we might fund such a thing for not only the mayor, but for the city council member wants to educate themselves, so, and the city clerk and staff. So I think it's important we're all continually educated, so.
Is there support for that motion? Tabling it?
I'll support that.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All abstain. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, Steve, paid on call ambulance salary range increase.
Yeah, so when we started the paid on call staffing, we kept the rates as low as we possibly could. So we've now had this running for over a year, and we need to increase that top scale rate from 11 to 11.50.
Well, here we are looking at budget. Does this, how does it affect the annual budget?
Yeah, I mean, overall, if you were, like, how much more increase is it to the expenditures? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
The $1,560 a year more coming out of the ambulance fund, yeah. So.
Okay, this is associated with the, obviously, the paid on call service. Okay.
Steve, how do these rates compare to, how do these rates compare to other paid on call services? Any idea?
Well, initially, ours were going to be higher, but then everybody realized theirs were so low that so Evelyn, I know their top amount is, I believe it's $13 an hour. Virginia has EMTs, but they're full-time employees, so you can't compare them.
The cook pays on the
Yeah, they have a weird setup there. But to put it in perspective, you just raised your rate for your maintenance helper to $11.50 an hour, which comes out of taxes, as opposed to what these people do, which is being funded by the ambulance itself. So.
Is there a motion?
mean, that's a pretty doable thing, okay.
Okay, was that a motion? I'll make that motion. Okay, is there support?
Support.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, carried unanimously. Resolution 2019-04, resolution to authorize utilization of MnDOT.
Yes, that's right. This is for the new sign. We need to cross the right of way
Okay.
to install the new sign.
Okay, I don't imagine there's a lot of discussion for that. Okay, is there a motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. City accounting software, Linda?
Yes. As I alluded to before, we always have had, since the 5 years I've been clerk and then the 2 years as deputy clerk, problems and issues with our software. We've lost public utilities for over 6 months at a time. We've lost, like I said earlier, we were waiting to find out what the state of our wastewater fund accounting is. I am not able to get into our account. I'm getting able to get into it, but I'm not able to perform all the functions of it, as we get error messages and whatnot. We have tried to brainstorm thousands of different solutions. We've worked with other cities. Other cities have the same problem. I'm not sure how those that are using it successfully, other than if they're using bigger servers than what we have capability of affording. I spent the last 2 conferences working with other clerks trying to figure out what would be the best software for us. Last April, after the audit, we were in the same boat with our software, and I had advised the council at that time that I thought I would be coming before the end of the year with a proposal, but things happened and that just didn't happen. So I am here now, and I would like the council to approve the expenditure from reserves for new accounting software, so we can end some of these headaches and problems that we're having.
What's the current and what's the proposed?
The current is called Banyan Data Systems. One thing to note on it, and anybody that's a tech person will catch this, it's a Microsoft Access-based system, and then the proposed is ClerkBooks, which is specifically designed for small cities. It was created in Iowa and created for a town of 507 people. We are 495, so I think it's very similar. It has all the functions, the payroll, the utility billing. It would also take care of the payroll issue that happened with the audit this year. And I don't know how many thousands of headaches and gray hairs it will save Gary and I.
You mentioned the city side, hopefully, hypothetically grow.
This would allow...
Software accommodate that?
Last year, as I told you, we processed 1,187 expenditure transactions. I'm not sure that it's equal to that, but let's just say there's an equal amount of revenue transactions. So you're looking about 2,500 transactions a year. This would allow us 625 transactions a month. So it gives us significant room to grow. And then they also have different levels. We would just have to start, there would just be an increase after that 20 of an add-on.
Have you talked, just to something else, have you ever talked to someone that actually has it and working?
Yes, I did. The city clerk, or the city of Scanlon uses this product as opposed to city to us, and I happened to end up just by serendipity right next to him at conference. And when we introduced each other to each other, he said, "I'm from Scanlon," and I said, "Well, you're the guy I've been looking the whole conference for." So we had a good chat, and he is very confident in it, and they've had no issues. They had the same issues with Banyan that we were having. I think everybody on the last council probably heard us swearing and yelling about how glitchy Banyan was. And until Microsoft improves Microsoft Access, which they don't want to do, we will always have issues. Microsoft admits that that's their worst product. They do not put marketing dollars or new dollars into it. They're just basically waiting for it to self-unload.
Linda, can you help me understand what the cost layout here? Are these
Yep.
different products?
Yep, well, it's different pieces of the product. The first one is the whole software itself. The second charge is for the closing tools, which actually takes care of like what your journal entries, your month-end closes, the auditor transactions. That would take care of processes those pieces of items. Utility billing is obviously what it says it is. Payroll, obviously what it says it is. Remote support and training, this is actually the least, but I think, I felt that this was more than sufficient. It offers us 5 hours a month. Right now, it's torture at best to call it, so I try not to, so I can't say how much, and we tend to try to figure out our stuff as best we can on our own without calling them. In fact, I'm still waiting from March 26th for the guy to call me back an hour later, but that's another problem. And then the data conversion of actually bringing our Banyan data into QuickBooks is the final component of the pricing.
And so on the second page, that total is the total for all of that?
Yep, that grand total, yep.
This is based on QuickBooks, right?
Yep, and it is based, it's based on the design of QuickBooks. If you've ever used QuickBooks, which I have, and I've never had a problem with QuickBooks, so nothing like this out there. The reporting functions are much easier out of QuickBooks.
Because the old one was 2004.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason that it worked back in the day was they had a little bit of different setup in the office. Tim primarily did a lot of the face work and what I would call the talking work, and Ann did the busy work, and now Terry and I are sharing in both of those. We both have the busy work, and we're both in that system, and we need it to perform the first time, all the time.
It's a good dashboard. Looks at the financial every month.
We'll have to work with them when we set it up. QuickBooks does have a ton of canned reports, so it'll be exciting to.
I use QuickBooks for 2 years, so I'm familiar with that. Very good. Okay, are there any other questions or motion?
I'll make the motion to get the software.
Is there support? I'll support.
And that is taking the money for it from reserves as well. That would be a separate part of that. I don't have it in my.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Standing Bear Marina final pay estimate.
You can comment on that if you want me to.
Sure.
Please.
Standing Bear Marina demo, as you know, was last fall or last spring, whatever project. In that bid, there was 2 bid items. One was for the dock removals, etc. The other was an allowance for an overhead crane removal. The dock work got done immediately. The overhead crane removal, the owner, city, and contractor negotiated what the best improvement for the money would be. For several months, we came up with a resolution. The work has now been done, and I reduced the amount of dock retainage by the amount of the change order, so the overall contract from day one has not gone over by 1 penny, so the last payment is for about $13,000. It brings it up to the full contract amount. So we're just looking to get that closed out, and I think there is an IC 134, and we checked the payrolls already, so it should be good to go.
And it looks great out there.
Thank you.
Okay, got a motion. Second. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Passed unanimously. Okay, number 10, the mayor misconduct complaint. Linda, where do you want to go with that?
I just need, you had tasked me at one of the last meetings, I'm not sure when it was, to find a mediator for free, which I cannot do. I know at the last meeting some stuff was read into the public input, but nothing has really resolved this complaint, and I just need some resolution. No, you put me on that one, but I can't find anyone for free.
Okay, so this was the complaint that Councilor Fitton used in his page and a half of various complaints, but the particular one that you're talking about now is the one that was lodged against me regarding from Altenburg. Oh. Sorry. Okay, so this misconduct allegation is part of the many issues that Councilor Fitton had in his report, but began with the one of an allegation against me by Steve Altenburg.
Correct. You need to address that complaint. You asked for Kevin to give you some additional feedback, but that has nothing to do with the original complaint.
Okay.
You just need to resolve the original.
Well, the original complaint, there's no difference. I don't know, Steve, do you want to read your complaint?
I don't have it with me. I mean, you can't just ignore it. And that complaint was filed by me because it was about me, but it came to light by a seated council member bringing it to the city's attention. So.
Okay, well, I have the same answer that I had last time, and then I invite the council to take action on it. Do you want me to reread the...
I don't think that's wise.
Okay. So,
I think you asked the city council.
I'm sorry? It's getting late for us too.
Being one of the two female council members, it's obvious that it was Brooke and myself who were present at this meeting / discussion with Orland following the November election. I don't recall the date. I recall that I was asked for more of a social call to Mr. Kringstad's place of business with Brooke to get to know one another and talk about Tower and that type of thing. Being well aware of open meeting laws and that sort of thing, I was not concerned at that point because I was not a seated council member and felt that there was no impropriety in the three of us needing to talk. One, I'm going to be very careful here. I'm not calling anybody untruthful in what's been said, but I specifically don't recall anything so derogatory being said that it would affect a person's position, employment, or department in the city. I know there was general discussion, and none of it struck me so strongly that night that it raised concerns for any follow-up from that. This has been going on for a while, and I've tried to stay out of it a bit. But at this point, I would say that as the third party present at that meeting, I don't recall anything improper being said. And with that, I would suggest that we dismiss this complaint.
You can make the motion and we get support and then we ask for discussion.
So I move that we dismiss this complaint.
Okay. Is there support, Councilor? Okay. Any discussion? Anyone want to have any discussion regarding this?
Okay, the question I have
This isn't public.
No, it's not public.
So now,
So any further discussion? Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Can I just say present? Yeah, abstain?
Okay. The motion carries.
Did you abstain or did you vote? Did you abstain or did you vote?
I abstain. Okay. We now have, number 11 is a closed council meeting pursuant to statute 13B.05. So we'll have to ask everyone to leave. No problem.
You know, if they could call
Right.
on
That's
their
kind of
own.
normally my protocol, so I got it, I sent it to the mayor and said, what should we do with this?
Yeah.
And I think we talked and
We needed to answer it, but generally, those requests should come to City Hall first and not directly to him. And then, and I'm sorry, but
No, it's okay.
there was some significant feedback after that where I think that Andy was talked to downright rude. And I think he deserves much more respect than that. And I
back then, I don't know.
it would, Marshall had answered him. What happened was when Andy had answered, Marshall had gone through his spam filter and into his junk folder. So then Andy had said, well, I answered you on this day, here's a copy of the email. And Marshall's response, in my mind, was a little bit snippy because it said something about, well, I don't know who you sent it to, but it never came to me and never came to Jody. And like I said, I think he deserves more respect from that. And I just didn't appreciate like nothing, there was no language or foul or it's that and then a go back and forth with the court. No, we shouldn't be doing that to him.
I think that's one of those things that can be noted, but can't police that behavior kind of a thing.
Well, you could by billing that party back for those charges.
You've had clients
Okay.
spoken
Oh,
unfavorably.
yes.
Yeah, that's what I
Many
mean.
times.
I agree.
So what I'm hearing is Andy has spoken to you and Orland about this communication before it was responded to? Possibly.
$280. So small in the grand scheme of things, but $280 here, $280 there. And I guess my only thing that I was looking for is that you would say that should he receive any of those future communications, the answer fired right back is go through City Hall.
Right, I think that's where we need to.
Even if it seems helpful to try to answer them, which is kind of what we thought the last time, the answer just needs to be cold turkey, City Hall.
I think part of it too is just because he had made a daily practice and you're the controlling
Yeah.
authority, so that puts
It
you
was
in a little bit of
kind of
a
messy, but
difficult position, should you respond or not, and I think we had talked that it was better that maybe in this case I responded, but like I said, it's easier for me if I just get an email that I can just forward to you and say, if there's anything you want me to do, let me know, otherwise I'll just tell the person to, contact City
and
Hall.
I think that should be the advice, that if you get another media request that didn't come through us, it should come back.
Go through the proper.
I don't know that we need to make a motion, I think that as long as.
Yeah, normally I always say, I'll notify you first.
Yeah, you did.
I wouldn't have done anything else if you would have said, I wouldn't have done anything.
No, and he did. It was just, I just saw the bill and I just saw the email traffic going back and forth and it's just, I don't know. And we just need to watch our expenditures, so. You are going backwards on the agenda. You don't have this on, you can, but.
So it's important to me, and I feel like it's relevant, is it legal for me to back up a little bit and just get some clarification? So my question being, when I posed the question about the grievance process and what's going on here, am I able to review that question once I kind of have a written timeline or thoughts of what the concerns are here? Can I run that by Steve? And then bring that forward to an attorney?
Who would be, I don't think, I want everyone to feel as comfortable as possible about the process. So, is that, again,
It's hard for me again, because then I have to find out, the hard part is for me,
Yeah.
but I don't want to be.
To start the process, I guess I would have sent you the lead email, as well as what I sent them, and then let you take that to
But
them.
she, well, like Rachel, if that's something somebody at the league could help. her
Possibly,
do.
but I mean, Linda's got an opinion from the league already, so I mean, I think this was gonna go outside, so I mean, having Rachel contact another, kind of, you're going to contact a firm, and then seeking an opinion.
And then do you have any recommendations of how it's
You know, again, it's still put me in a hard position, because again, and I apologize, but like I said, I don't need to be, but it does put me in a hard position, because.
Because I think what Rachel's really planning to do is to keep this
You've already.
small,
Oh, awesome.
obviously, but I feel some people would feel that I was unbiased also.
I could find out who the city of Cook's attorney is. Okay, maybe they would, we kind of sister a lot with them. They're somewhat close inside.
And actually, I don't mind finding out
Okay.
and asking to do that.
Okay, yeah, I don't know if that's a fair, I have no idea, that you're not their attorney, right?
No.
Okay.
And I can't remember who it is. It used to be Fossil and Patchen, but I don't think it is anymore. I think it's someone else. So.
I have no clue who she is. Yeah, Teresa would be glad to share that with you though.
At the old Dale Carnegie tip, you gotta throw a little humor in there once in a while.
And if they use them, they must have, I know they've had some personnel issues lately too, so they may, probably should be familiar. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is I'd like to, like, run what I'm going, well, let me think about it, I'll just do it.
Okay, we're on number 12, presentation of claims.
Is that a motion?
Second,
Support.
discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion. I'm not gonna get it out.
9:01, is there support?
Support.
Discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye.